Yuya Tenjo says that when he was little, he always heard people calling him fat, ugly, useless, and unable to do anything. An unknown voice shouts at Yui to never give up. The man tells little Yui that as long as he can smile, he will always be happy, and that there's no need to rush. There's no rush. He then explains that one should be kind to those who need it most and cherish those who are kind to oneself. Grandpa's voice says everything will be fine and he believes in Yuya, while Yuya sits on her grandfather's knees at his altar. Will the fate of the unfortunate young man be random? For Yuya Tenjo had no place in this world. Someone says to Yui. Tenjo doesn't get ahead of himself and calls him fat. After which the sound of Yuya falling and groaning is heard. A teenage boy says Araki is so cool and laughs. The other one tells Yui that he shouldn't even dare puke and calls him a pig. Yui groans. Yui Tenjo explains that the school bully beats him up because he is ugly. The bully says Yuya has no money and offers to use him as a punching bag while beating him up. Yui Tenjo says that the bully has no right to use him, and he is surprised that he is not yet on his knees and asking for forgiveness with his bare ass in front of him and forbids him to insult the red fire Araki-sama. The crowd behind them whispers, "Bare ass? LOL. That's right. Spread the word." Laughter is heard. And the saddest part, Yudo and Sora appear and ask what they are all doing. Yudo reveals that he's Yuya's younger brother, and Sora explains that she's his younger sister, and that they thought something interesting was going on here, so they came here, but all they see is the face of a trash can. Yudo explains that it's his older brother, and says that as much as he hates to admit it, even his family was against him. Yudo says they shouldn't be named and that it's very rude of a punching bag. He explains that being related to someone like Yuya is a disgrace, and when the stupid old man died, Yuya should have done the same. Yui remembers his grandfather and says that Yuto can speak ill of him, but not of his grandfather. The bully yells at Yui, who gave him permission to speak, and kicks him. The woman is surprised that Yui will inherit her father's house. The man explains that her father managed to write a will before his death and get through the inheritance process, so the old man was a nuisance right up until the very end. The girl asks, does this old man really hold a grudge against them? For him, it was always Yuya this, Yuya that, and she wants him to think about how it looks in public. The man says now is their chance and Yui can leave home. The girl confirms that this will undoubtedly benefit his younger brother and sister. They continue that he's always bothering them and that they've been sheltering him until he graduated from high school and that's enough. Meanwhile, Yui hears this from behind the door. The man tells Yui that he is fired. Yui Tenjo asks what exactly the man means. The man explains that's all, adding that in addition to being late, he was covered in bruises. The man says he doesn't want any trouble, and Yui looks at the two hooligans waiting for him. Yui Tenjo gets scared. He is walking down a crowded street. Yui Tenjo explains that his grandfather left him the house, but he can't live without a part-time job. He then asks why the hell, why him, and asks why this always happens to him. Yui notices some bullies harassing a girl. The girl says she's already said no and asks to go home. The men demand a little fun and ask her to stop resisting. Yui reveals that they're Araki's friends, the Red Ogres. What should she do? Yui remembers how Araki bullied him and says that he should leave too and that he needs to hurry. The man says that she is here all alone anyway. Another man orders her to go. The girl screams in pain. Yui Tenjo asks for someone's help. Yui remembers her grandfather's words about being kind to those who need it most and cherishing those who are kind to her. Yui Tenjo calls out to the bullies, thinking that his grandfather would never abandon someone in trouble. The man asks what's wrong and calls Yui fat guy. Yui says in a trembling voice that she doesn't like this girl. Yui Tenjo is told to close his mouth, then makes a thumping sound. They beat him and tell him that Yui should die, and who does he even think they are? Yui asks what will happen to him. The police shout, "Hey there, what are you doing?" The hooligans say that someone snitched on them and start running away. The girl says that the ambulance will arrive soon and asks if Yui is okay. The guy is surprised. Yui Tenjo thanks the girl and refuses help. He says that everything is fine and he is okay. The girl suggests that he hold her hand while he gets up. Yui Tenjo says he's really okay and notices she's shaking. Yui informs her that the police are already here, warns her to be careful, and understands in her mind what the girl has been through. Yui runs away, thinking he can't let her talk to such an ugly guy like him. The girl thanks him for saving her and promises to repay him. The protagonist puts a bandage on the wound and explains that he thinks it should help, but it hurts. Yuya Tenjo looks at himself in the mirror with disgust. He says what a nice person she is because she has interacted with someone like him. Yuya Tenjo says that at first he tried his best to lose weight and become more handsome. But he wonders, what did it matter if he was alone? The grandfather in the memories says that as long as Yui can smile, he will always be happy, and that there's no need to rush. There's no rush. The grandfather reminds him that everything will be fine, and he believes in him. Yui remembers all the bullies' taunts and screams, "Why me?" A voice announces that Yui is desperately living in the present, with no hope for the future and no place for herself. Yui screams that he has no dreams for the future. Then he lifts the bucket over his head and smashes the mirror with it. He breathes heavily and says, "Oh no." Yuya Tenjo says he's destroying this house. Then he notices a hole in the wall and says it's a storage room. He says that his grandfather made a secret room like this. He says that he didn't expect this and asks what to do with it now. He notices a door and asks where it came from. The door features a carved wooden mask of an owl with outstretched wings. Yuya Tenjo wonders what it is. He says that this door calls him. He enters through it and receives the titles of Master of Doors, Master of Houses, and Man from Another World. The guy says he doesn't know where he is and explains that he was just standing in the middle of the room. Then he notices something interesting. Yuya Tenjo reads a letter stating that the previous owner's life has come to an end, and now the house and everything in it belongs to whoever found it. He explains that the letter left by the previous owner stated that the house would be passed on after his death. He sees interesting and expensive items and rejoices that all the possessions are his. He wants to test the spear he found quickly because he is a man after all. The description says it's an absolute spear, one that can surpass the creation of the gods, capable of piercing anything depending on the wielder, and always returning to its owner. Yui realizes that this weapon is more dangerous than he thought. Yui shouts that he needs he's learning a new skill, spearmanship, and says he doesn't understand what's going on here. Yuya Tenjo says he thinks the other weapons are just as impressive, but he's afraid to test them now. Yuya Tenjo asks what is happening here and what kind of person lived here, and who is this sage. Yui sees a growling demon with chains. He reacts sharply to the sound. The demon lets out a loud roar. The boy is frightened and asks what's going on here. A description pops up that tells the blood ogre stats. Level 300, Magic 100, Attack 5000, Agility 1000, Intelligence 500, Luck 100. Yuya Tenjo asks what kind of ogre it is and expresses surprise. He screams as he falls to the floor. He tries to fight off the attack. He says he knows you can't enter this house without the owner's permission, but if he's attacked, it's definitely the end for him. Yuya Tenjo says that in a situation like this, the main thing is not to panic and keep yourself in check. Otherwise, it's definitely the end for him. How can he be defeated? Yuya Tenjo says, wait, there is that spear. The description said the spear could return to its owner's hands no matter where he threw it. Perhaps he'll succeed. Yuya Tenjo explains that the description says the enemy is a blood ogre, but it looks more like a red ogre or minotaur, and says that if he throws a spear it will return to him, so he should test it. Yuya Tenjo reports that if the enemy fails to switch sides, then perhaps Yui managed to defeat him with a spear. Yuya succeeds and notes that the spear is still too dangerous. The level was reported to have been raised. Yuya Tenjo says his level has increased. He's surprised, but explains that if you think about it logically, it's not surprising that his level increased after killing a monster. The information window informs Yui that he has no profession, a level from 1 to 100, and that his magic, attack, defense, agility, intelligence, and luck stats range from 1 to 1000, respectively. Yui is surprised by how much this is. He is warned that he will receive 10 BP with each level, that he has received a new title, and that his BP total is 10,000. He can also distribute the points he earns as he pleases. Yuya Tenjo redistributes his points. He's now level 100, with attack 3000, magic 1500, defense 3000, agility 1500, intelligence 1500, and luck 4000, along with the skills analysis and resistance. Yuya says he thought at least something would change. He notices that where that damn orc died, something fell. It's reported that these are the war horns of a blood ogre, and they're highly prized, making a powerful weapon capable of piercing any monster. It's also explained that a B-rank magic stone is a special magical or obtained from slain monsters. He also received a blood demonic ogre muscle set, which doesn't affect normal attacks and increases the user's strength and agility. Yuya informs him that he won't be able to use the horns or armor for now. Yuya Tenjo says that he will keep it all for now and notices an item box. You can store your things in it without any volume limitation, but you cannot store living creatures. He says it looks like this box can store everything. They explain to him that cash conversion is possible when storing items, and he'd like to store the items he received from the Blood Ogre and convert everything except achievements. Items cashed in include a B-rank magic stone worth 100 million yen and Blood Ogre horns worth 50 million yen. Yuya Tenjo is surprised. At the same time, in the castle of von Arceria, Knight Owen of the Royal Guard of the Kingdom of Arceria introduces himself and addresses the interlocutor, calling him Your Excellency. Before him stands the first princess of the Kingdom of Arceria, Lexia von Arceria. The princess tells Owen that she is listening to him and clarifies whether she understood correctly that during her walks she needs to stay as close to the guards as possible. The man says he is glad that His Excellency understands this, but he has heard rumors that the places made are very dangerous, and if something happens to you, the king. The man says what he just said, and the woman he's talking to does the opposite. He asks if she was even listening to him. The woman remains silent. The princess says that there is no need to tell her everything all the time. She explains that he is aware that there are not very pleasant rumors circulating in the palace, and reports that everyone knows what people think about the first princess. The girl says she just doesn't worry about these things. The knight reports that he has a feeling that something is about to happen. The sound of the impact is heard inside the building. The building's exterior is shown at night. Yuya Tenjo, lying on his bed, says he entered another world, killed a monster, and leveled up, but still doesn't understand anything. He also says he's had a crazy day. He says that when he wakes up, all of this, everything that happened today will turn out to be just a dream. The building is shown at night. The right panel depicts a clock showing the time as being around 5:15. The left panel depicts a room with a chest of drawers and a window. The sound of a ticking clock can be heard in both panels. The sound of a dull thud is repeated several times. Yuya Tenjo gasps and breathes heavily, then screams loudly. The top right panel shows a house, and a clicking sound can be heard. Laughter can be heard in the top left panel. Yuya Tenjo wakes up and notices that it is already dawn. He says he's in severe pain and hasn't slept well, asking not to say he's sick. He then reports that the pain has stopped and asks what's going on. He sees his thin arms and, confused, repeats the question, not understanding the situation. Yuya screams that he is in pain and says that from that moment on everything became strange. His physique became not as fat as before, and his height became taller. Yuya Tenjo asks to wait a minute as there is a more important matter and says that he does not have any suitable clothes for such a body. He says he found these things yesterday and is very happy about it, and thanks him for the opportunity to use them. He explains that he doesn't look much like a muscle man and wonders if that's why his body hurt so much last night. He reveals that he doesn't know what he looks like now because he broke his mirror that day. Yuya Tenjo says these clothes are very comfortable and that these items are very valuable. The text explains that the royal silk shirt is a silk garment of the highest quality, made from royal silk, flexible, comfortable, and pleasant to the touch, with a body temperature control function. The trousers are also made of the same silk. He's wearing the dragon god's leather boots, made from the skin of a dragon god, which don't cause damage when falling from any height, don't cause fatigue or pain in the legs, and have a self-cleaning coating. Yuya says that even a god has appeared, as expected from such a person. Yuya Tenjo says they should take a look around. He says he didn't notice the sword yesterday, and there are still many interesting things in this house. It's the absolute sword, the highest sword among all known swords. Its blades are sharp and never dull, and depending on the wielder, it can cut through anything. Yuya has gained swordsmanship. He reveals that the Death Scythe is the scythe the Grim Reaper used for murder. The Infinity Gauntlets are a melee weapon that doubles as armor, and the Invisible Bow is a formless, spectral bow. All the conditions are met, and true martial arts are learned. Yuya Tenjo reports that there's even a vegetable garden here and asks if this land is the sage's property, as he's never seen such vegetables. The text explains that it's a medicinal herb capable of curing all kinds of wounds and illnesses, restoring severed limbs, and restoring MP. He is silent. Yuya Tenjo says Grandpa is definitely some kind of weirdo and that he knew it. The texts explain that Super Tomato increases attack, Radish of Wisdom increases intelligence, Godspeed Potato increases speed, and Invincible Pumpkin increases defense. He says the vegetables look like regular ones. Yuya Tenjo says it will cut down on his food costs and asks if it's even edible. Then he's surprised. He sees an incomprehensible creature, is surprised, and says that first there was a bloody ogre, and now this hellish slime, and asks what's wrong with this forest, calling the situation abominable. Yuya notices that this slime is also attacking, noting that the creatures from this world are truly terrifying. Yuya Tenjo says he's not as scared as he was yesterday when he saw that bloody ogre, and asks if he's just imagining it. The guy says that this time everything is different and says that it looks like he can't avoid this battle. An absolute spear appears in his hand. He reports that yesterday he lifted a spear with both hands. He throws the spear at the monster. Then he sees that the spear skill has been learned and says that the level has been raised and that combat points need to be distributed among the stats. Yuya Tenjo says he seems to understand. He explains that his body is the effect of leveling up. He says it looks like he'll have to read books on martial arts. The girl suggests taking this book. He's thinking about how best to use this spear. The text explains that he's leveled up, learned precaution, and precaution is an ability. The guy says, Yuya. Tenjo says, wait a second. The woman makes a sound of excitement in response. The man says thank you for the purchase. On the right panel, a man reports that the pedestrian signal is green. On the left panel, Yuya Tenjo walks down the street with a bag in his hand, and two girls talk to each other. He says he feels like he's being watched. The girls are discussing someone among themselves. The girl says she doesn't understand if Yuya did something wrong, Tenjo something, and Yuya Tenjo reports that he might have his fly unzipped. He says that maybe this jewelry makes him ugly, and he wears this jewelry. The man says that several hours have passed. He explains that, of course, it's good that the items fell out again, but he's curious. The man talks about the core of the hellish slime. Tenjo's necklace Yuya increases all stats at night, collects sunlight during the day to passively restore the user's MP, and reports that this is a very rare item. Yuya Tenjo says he was able to put it on properly and yells, wow. Yuya Tenjo reports that it hurts. Yuya Tenjo makes a move with his hands behind his head. He says that even though this item is very rare, there's a chance it could also drop. He says no, that's enough already. He's thinking about the drop chance. The man says he'll try to increase his luck and says that as a test, he's increasing his luck to 4,500, then to 6,500 with a BP increase of plus 2,000. The man explains that something good can happen and asks if he's sure about his choice. The traffic light shows green. Yuya Tenjo says he's been having a bad luck streak for a while now. He explains that the green light is because he's boosted his luck. The other man says it's green. Yuya Tenjo asks luck. He says that if he could use this luck in the real world, it would be cool. He explains that this is the real world, after all, and he thinks that's impossible. Yuya Tenjo advises caution. The guy says he can't afford to lose. He says he's not going to lose something. Yuya Tenjo says he can't believe this happened and says it was unexpected. The girl explains that she was trying to do something important, but something went wrong. The man tells him what's going to happen. The man tells him to get out of the way and calls him a fool. Yuya Tenjo says it was dangerous. He says the other guy is now completely safe because he was driving too recklessly and it was dangerous. He apologizes for the sudden movement and asks if the other guy is okay. The girl asks if he is okay. The girl remains silent, and the man explains that he's glad she wasn't hurt and says the translator gives the ability to understand any language. The girl is surprised. The girl says thank you to her brother. The man asks what language this is. The woman says that this guy speaks this language fluently. The man says that this is a little girl and a first-class handsome guy. Yuya Tenjo says he can't afford to lose Yuya. Tenjo explains that he must win. He says he never thought those skills would actually work in the real world. The girl screams that a man suddenly grabbed her arm, asks him not to touch her, and calls for help. Yuya Tenjo says he's glad he wasn't reported to the police. He says it's no wonder he bought such books. Yuya Tenjo says that fencing is probably something ordinary, but the art of wielding a sword and killing with a scythe, this world is probably full of strange books. He reports that the reason he decided to read these books is because he became interested in martial arts. A man announces the menu for quitting his part-time job and freedom during spring break, then explains that it seems there is simply no way to avoid fighting in this world. Yuya Tenjo states that skills and weapons are of great help, but learning to use them properly will be a huge advantage in real combat. The text also indicates that his true martial arts have been upgraded to level 2. He reports that he has something sticky and unpleasant in his hand. He then turns and walks into another room. In the final scene, he sits down on the floor, feeling uncomfortable. Cooking skill acquired. Yuya Tenjo says he's eating. Yuya Tenjo announces the names of the dishes: Wisdom Radish, Super Tomato, Invincible Pumpkin, Godspeed Potato. Yuya Tenjo tries the food and says it's delicious. He reports that he went to check the area around this house, as at least that's what he planned. During this time, his attack, defense, intelligence, and agility are increased. A week has passed. Lexia von Arkesia is reported to be the illegitimate daughter of the king of this world. In the top right, a man explains that his mother was a slave for whom the king opened a new life. In the top left, a woman explains that her mother was unlike other slaves, being of the elven race. The man says that being the daughter of a concubine is very dangerous, as it means belonging to two completely different statuses and races. The girl says, "Mom." Yuya Tenjo says he's too fast and asks them to wait for him, and the other boy apologizes, saying he just didn't understand. The woman and man scream for help. The text says 5 years have passed. The woman says they are wild dogs. Woman reports release of enormous magical power. In order to defend herself, the princess used all the magic she inherited from her mother, but she was unable to control such enormous power and ended up seriously injuring the prince. Tenjo reports that the prince was eventually cured, but the young princess began to be treated with caution regarding. The man informs Lady Lexia that they're finished and everyone seems pleased with her work. The woman says she was a little worried when Owen said they might run into trouble, but everything seems fine, and the man explains that they have a group of experienced warriors, so everything should be fine. A woman reports that her father is overly worried about her. The woman is surprised and says something strange is happening. The man in the carriage stops abruptly, startling those around him. The hooded man says that if they don't want to be killed, they need to give them all the money they have. The hooded man explains that if they don't have the money, they'll be killed. The top hat man says they don't have the money and asks them not to kill them. The top hat man explains that. The girl says that there seem to be bandits there, and that the guards are completely surrounded by bandits, and another girl asks what's going on outside. The girl explains that the princess should escape through the back door, as that would be the most sensible decision, and the princess asks if there is anything outside. The man informs the princess that she has no choice, given the current situation, and asks her to hurry. The princess remains silent, then says that it's okay. The image depicts two skeletons in cloaks moving forward, one of them extending a hand. There is no speech. Yuya Tenjo yells, "Ha ha!" And then it's reported that a week has passed since he began exploring this new world. On Yuya's first day, Tenjo encountered a group of elite goblins. In the upper right corner, a man reports that on the second day, the hero found a plant that appears dangerous. In the upper left corner, A man explains that on the third day, he gains several new skills, and a window is shown next to it with the words map, detect, and absorption. On the fourth day of Yuya Tenjo tests the ghost bow, and on the fifth day he discovers that some monsters have amazing taste. The sixth day remains unchanged. On the current day, Yuya Tenjo fights several skeletons. He reports that the first week of reconnaissance has been successfully completed and explains that he doesn't know why, but it was too easy. Yuya Tenjo says he's been encountering monsters all day and calls it nonsense. The text block states that his research has led him to two conclusions. The man says that, firstly, this forest is teeming with monsters, and they're very strong. The man explains that his house is surrounded by a strong barrier that prevents the monsters from getting inside, and asks why the previous owner lived here in the first place. The man replies that it's unclear. Yuya Tenjo explains that his titles give a huge boost, and names two titles that are the best: Sky Traveler, a person from another world. Skills, experience, and everything else progress very quickly compared to ordinary people. Can also surpass the established level, and Sky Newbie. The guy reports that he easily explored the area and got easy levels. He says that it's cool to get perks for such easy work and wants it to continue like this forever. He says that he has to go to school soon. The guy says that when classes start tomorrow, he will see these people again and asks them not to approach him. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't even want to think about it and doesn't want that kind of life. The boy pushes the other one away with a scream. He says that if he doesn't go to school he will get a bad grade, but they don't care whether he gets a good education or not. Yuya Tenjo says he just remembered that old ogre and that it's okay, just ignore it, then asks why it has to be a big group of fucking ogres. He says it looks like they're running away and asks what or who they're running from. He then reports the appearance of danger. Yuya Tenjo says it was something. The guy says, hey, and tells her they've already made it very far, asking if she thinks that's enough. The girl explains that shouldn't they try to find some help? The woman tells her not to worry and says they should meet up with the others by now. The girl replies that it's fine. The man asks the princess to relax. The hooded man announces his return to his comrades. The girl expresses surprise. The hooded man with the skull explains the situation. The man orders the girl to be captured alive, explaining that she can't escape since she's on their territory. The girl screams, and the masked man smiles. The girl accuses the man of lying. Yuya Tenjo reports hearing rustling sounds. The girl says she doesn't understand why they're treating her like this and what they want from her. Yuya Tenjo says to be smart, little princess, and just die. The girl screams in pain. The man says he's pissed off that they spent so much time on such a half-breed. He says, ah. The girl says not to call her a half-breed and says that she is proud of such disgust. In the top left, a girl explains that it all happened thanks to one person. In the top right, a man laughs and says that their princess is funny, and asks if she cares that all the people who protected her are now dead. He bets that they've all arrived. In the center, a man explains. The girl says it's her fault and asks what kind of jokes she's making. She says her mother and father loved her, and that's all that matters. The girl tells him that if he doesn't stop, she'll kill him. The man explains that he can't stop because his body won't obey him. The girl tells him that he has to fight it and not give up. The man says he'll try. The goblin announces that it's the goblin general and expresses disbelief. The man screams in pain. The man asks for help. The man lets out cries of pain. Yuya Tenjo says he can't afford to lose because then the girl will die. Yuya Tenjo explains that if he loses, the girl will die. The girl says, ah. The man explains something. The man raises his weapon to strike. The girl says she's about to be killed and says she doesn't want it. Not like this. She repeats that she doesn't want it like this. Yuya Tenjo screams, attacking with force. The girl looks at him with surprise and tears. He asks who it is and names the person. The girl says that his hair and eyes are such a pure black color, reminiscent of the night sky. The guy asks if she's okay. Yuya Tenjo says you can't die and asks how she is. Yuya Tenjo notices her and reacts to her condition. He says it looks like she's just unconscious. Yuya Tenjo says the main thing is that he's not dead and expresses relief. The man says that now it's time to talk a little about the Goblin General. He says he wonders if the enemy knows better than to mess with him. The man muses that he seems to be analyzing him, and perhaps if he understands his strength, he'll back down. He delivers a powerful blow to the man while the girl, Yuya Tenjo, says he'll take it. The man says he doesn't think he'll do that, and in any case he's very fast. Yuya Tenjo assesses the situation. A goblin general appears with the following stats. Level 200. Mana 1000. Attack 9000. He says the situation is bad. The man notices the enemy approaching and reacts. He moves quickly, and the man prepares to attack. Yuya Tenjo says he just needs to attack the enemy first. The monster turns sharply, then delivers a powerful blow with his sword downwards, and at the bottom right are shown the silhouettes of two fighters, one of whom says that in this case, Yuya Tenjo says to find an opportunity. Yuya Tenjo uses a spirit bow. The man strikes with an absolute spear. The man looks at Yuya Tenjo. He says the enemy is too slow. Yuya Tenjo reveals the name of the technique. Absolute sword. Yuya Tenjo delivers a powerful blow with his sword. Yuya Tenjo stands still after the attack, with a defeated enemy lying nearby. He reports that he cannot afford to lose. Yuya Tenjo says he's not disgusted by these guys for some reason. He explains that it might be because he's leveled up, but that's not important right now. Yuya Tenjo says that the guys he saw were on the verge of death, and this girl. The girl says that he is the first person she met and laughs, asking him to wait. He remains silent. Yuya Tenjo says that if he takes her to his home, it will be tantamount to kidnapping, but he can't leave her here, as she might be attacked by goblins or other monsters. He explains that he's simply using healing herbs on her wounds, and if he doesn't wake her, she'll die. The men shout, demanding that he be seized and asking who he is and what he did to Lady Lexia. The woman says it's a bad idea, and the man says they need to get out of here. Two men notice something and react with surprise. Yuya Tenjo explains that absorption is a process of becoming one with nature to erase one's presence and conceal one's magical power. The man informs her that Lexia herself is here, injured, and calls for a doctor, warning her to be on guard as the monster. The man says he doesn't understand what happened here and names it. He then states that, however, the guy says they're very vigilant and is glad he hid from them. The girl closes her eyes and makes a hand gesture. The man marvels at how amazing it is and asks what kind of magic it is, noting that he healed her wounds so easily. The man reports that her wounds have been treated. The woman explains that she's just unconscious now. The man says she's fine. Thank you. The man explains that something happened here and they can't stay long. The man says they're going back. The other man confirms. The man tells General Uzan that there is no way anyone could have the power to do this. General Uzan asks what happened. It's said to be a vast magical border where monsters predominate, and if anyone was nearby, it was most likely a sage or a demon lord. Yuya Tenjo says that for a second he thought someone noticed him and calls it scary and invisible. He reports that the item box creates a subspace dimension without any limitation on storing items, provided there are no living beings that cannot be stored together with things. It is reported that the high school entrance ceremony will be held on April 4th. Yuya Tenjo says that he won't be studying today because he has things to do, and explains that he will definitely come tomorrow. He says that spring break is already over and he can't wait for it to end, adding sarcasm. Yuya Tenjo says that these jerks probably go to the same school as him, and it really bothers him because they'll pick on him and bully him again. Yuya Tenjo expresses irritation. He says he doesn't understand what school is for. Then he falls silent. He and the other guy are lying on the floor. He covers his ears with his hands. He says it's time to go. The second girl tells the first that the guy is very handsome, and the first asks if he is a transfer student. The boys say he's very tall, ask if he's a model, and remark that they've never seen such a handsome guy, especially at their school. Yuya Tenjo looks puzzled, and the two girls scream with delight. Yuya Tenjo explains that they ran away when they saw him. He says he'll simply disappear into the background and sit quietly, not raising his hand to answer questions. He adds that the main thing is to blend in. The man says he's just going to sit and read a book, and he's doing it quickly. Yuya Tenjo says, "Hey." The man explains that it's the same thing. Yuya Tenjo asks who, are you talking about me? The man in the back on the right says the guy is a transfer student. The guy at the desk asks who the fuck he is and if he recognizes him. The man in the classroom on the left asks who he is and demands to know how much longer he has to wait. The man on the right explains that he's been picking on him and is just looking for an excuse to hit him. Yuya Tenjo says his name. The man asks what it means. The boy announces that he can't take it anymore and is going to leave school. The other students express surprise and confusion, asking what he said. The guy says it's really him and asks him to stop. The man laughs and asks if the guy really has had plastic surgery. The man also expresses disbelief and calls the guy a pig, not believing what he said. Yuya Tenjo says he worked really hard on himself during the holidays, fighting demons and monsters, doing special exercises he found online, and all because of his level up. The man asks if he's serious. He says it's a height difference. The man yells at them not to mess with him and calls the other man a bastard. Another man tells everyone to calm down and take their seats. The guy says he's leaving now. Yuya Tenjo jerks back sharply. The man explains that he's leaving now. He says he got away with it and it's good he wasn't hit. Then he's silent. The other guy expresses surprise. Yuya Tenjo says he's asking who else it is. He stands silently by the window. The rest of the students in the class are also silent. He explains to another guy that he can't help, and the guy claps his hands, encouraging him. Yuya Tenjo says he needs to get used to this new body and asks him to sit down. Yuya Tenjo explains that he ran out of things at the mall on Sunday. He says he's a little surprised and didn't think his body had changed so much. The man explains that the mirror in his house was broken, so he couldn't have known about it. Yuya Tenjo says he's curious about what other people think of him. He explains that the main thing is that they don't think he's some kind of freak and says hello. The girl says that if he is free, then why doesn't he play with them, and the guy says that they don't bite and laughs. The guy says the girl is very tall and asks if she's a model, and the girl says that's a good idea. The guy thinks they're probably scammers trying to lure me into their trap, because who would want to go out with him? Yuya Tenjo says that he needs to say no. He needs to be sincere in his refusal and refuse as politely as possible. He says he needs to do something. The girl tells the guy not to worry and that she's very ashamed. The other girl asks for forgiveness, and the guy explains that the main thing is for them not to get angry and that he feels very sorry for them. Yuya Tenjo says that if they report him, it will be bad, so he acted wisely. The girl asks Miyu-chan to guess what she wants to try today, and Miyu-chan explains that she almost forgot about her modeling audition. The man on the stairs says this is the second hall. He says he looks pretty good. The guy says he can try it on. The man says a lot of people have passed through this place. The man asks if he needs another item. In the second hall, a man announces the lights, camera, and action, asks everyone to wait behind the line and step back, and calls for the next person. A man in the crowd says he can't wait any longer. Another man in the crowd apologizes. Mr. Hikari says he's been waiting for an hour and calls the next person, hoping a truly good person will show up. Miyu tells him not to worry so much about me. Mr. Hikari explains that Miyu has been spoiling herself too much, and that she's late, and asks him to stop spoiling herself because of her hangover. The woman says Miyu is above all this and knows she's a responsible girl even after becoming a star. The man says he just wants to make sure no one is late. Yuya Tenjo says he thinks he's picked up a sense of fashion while wandering around, then asks what kind of crowd this is. The guy says she's cute. The girl explains that she's probably a celebrity and that they're filming something, and also says that she's very beautiful. Yuya Tenjo says it's hard to find clothes in this situation and says he'll go elsewhere. The man explains they don't have any decent volunteers, but his Miyu will shine above all others. He explains that the theme of the shoot is modern couples, so he needs to find a partner for Miyu, which he considers a bad idea. A man asks if they have a replacement. Another man explains that the main thing is to get good footage. Then he says that there are no suitable young people on the film crew. The man says they need someone who looks as good as Yui in every way, but they just need to decide who to choose. The man lets out a scream. Yuya Tenjo apologizes and says hello, explaining that he's passing the target the camera is zoomed in on. The man shouts that Yui is there. Yuya Tenjo asks what he is. The woman says it's elegant and sexy. The man says to make them lovers. The woman explains they need to be a little sexier. The man says to look at the camera like a lion. The guy says he's already tired and asks her to smile. Yuya Tenjo explains that everyone is nervous at first and it's a bit difficult, but they get used to it quickly. Yuya Tenjo says the guy is a very beautiful girl. The guy thanks her. The guy says he's very awkward and needs to relax a little. Yuya Tenjo says he can't believe this happened. The girl asks what happened. The guy screams from the heat and doesn't understand what's going on or what day it is, and also says his hands are sweating. He explains that he doesn't understand why the girl is so persistently hugging his hands. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't want the girl to cry and explains that he will always be there for her. The girl says she wants to be with him forever. He tells Miyu that this is just work. He says it's not the time to think about such things and that she needs to focus. The man yells, "Concentrate." He makes sounds of fatigue. The man tells the guys, "It's a short break." The man says they filmed everything they needed and thanks them for that, then asks if Yuya liked it. Tenjo to be a model. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't even know and has never done it. The man says that Yuya Tenjo is really good. The woman thanks him for his hard work and asks if everything is okay with him. He says yes, everything is okay. The woman says she knows it was brazen of them to drag Yuya into this. Tenjo poses for the camera and explains that he's done a tremendous job today, working hard with her and the film crew. The woman thanks Yuya Tenjo once again. He is silent. Yuya Tenjo says he's never modeled before and that it was a new experience for him. He says Yuya is really good at her job. Tenjo explains that in a short time he realized how difficult it is to pose and work as a model in general. The girl says that over time you get used to it and scold yourself for somehow ruining the pose. Then the guy says that Miyu is amazing and tries to take care of everyone. Yuya Tenjo says he acts first and thinks later. He explains that he did his work first and only then paid attention to his surroundings. Yuya Tenjo says that throughout the day he realized that Miyu is a very kind and caring person, and notes that Miyu is completely different. He says she shouldn't be so hard on herself. There are a lot of people like her. Yuya says her name means carefree and calm. Yuya Tenjo reveals that his grandfather had a habit of always being very friendly, and he also wants to be like his grandfather and respect people no matter what. He says that he seems to look a bit like him. The girl says Yuya Tenjo, who doesn't think he needs it, calls him by his first name, Yuya. She then explains that everyone should follow their own path and asks him to be more confident in himself. Tenjo reports that no one has ever pronounced his name that way. Yuya Tenjo says she had a lot of fun and thanks her for the opportunity to participate in a modeling shoot together. In response, the man says he had fun too. The woman says it's not just a modeling shoot, but that anything he likes is a win. He says that's all he likes and laughs. Then she asks if anyone has ever thought they'd never be able to do anything again. Yuya Tenjo says that this was true for him in the past, but everything has changed since he found that door, and he started enjoying life and the world around him again. The girl says she hopes Yuya continues in the same spirit. He says that he doesn't know how to give compliments, but the girl explains that it's not scary and that he's already doing well. The photographer says it's wonderful and asks for a couple more photos. The man thanks her for the shoot, which was on the verge of disaster, and says, "Thank you very much." Yuya Tenjo says he's glad he didn't disappoint his interlocutor. The man explains that he didn't actually do anything and asks if he really did a great job. The man replies that his interlocutor was excellent. He says that if a pro says so, then he thinks he's good. The man says he wants to pay Yuya, but the contract doesn't allow it. So he brought the best they have and asks her to accept it. He says he'll pay for the clothes. The man reports that Yuya Tenjo posed for clothes from this store, so it even benefits them. Yuya Tenjo says thank you very much. The woman thanks him for his help, and he replies that it was a valuable experience and thanks her in return. He says that now he will try to be more confident and make every effort. The man expresses surprise and turns to Miyu. The girl says it was a lot of fun, and Yuya Tenjo says he had fun too. The girl adds that if they ever meet again, they'll definitely do something together. The guy says it's good, and the girl says she hopes he continues to enjoy his work. The sound of footsteps is accompanied by a drawn-out who. The man says he's a little late and asks if it was boring without him. because it's hard to find someone as charismatic. The group of men notice that Mr. Hikari is starting to get angry, and Yuya Tenjo thinks this is the guy. The girl explains that she thinks this is the guy she should be with. The guy tells Miyu-chan that let's quickly finish this and go somewhere to have a drink, for example, to his house. Yuya Tenjo says to the guy lying on the floor, "Hey you." The guy on the floor is surprised. The man says, "Who?" The guy tells the man not to dare talk to him like that and orders him to get out of here, calling him a worm. He explains that because of the man, Miyu-chan feels uncomfortable and thinks it's best for him to leave. The woman says Yuya Tenjo. Yuya Tenjo asks who he's talking to. The man replies, Yuya. Tenjo, not playing the hero, asks if he knows who he's talking to, calling him scum. The woman says she's actually sad that you. The crowd says it's just humorous sarcasm and urges him to learn to read the atmosphere, and he says he's so stupid. The guy says, "Ah." The guy says, "PFF. Oh well." Yuya Tenjo says he'll go see Miyu then. The girl asks him not to blame her if the photos aren't charismatic and says she's leaving. The guy says that the guy is about to sit down but he'll die, and at the same time he strikes. The girl says Yuya. Yuya uses an advanced dodge, and the attacker is surprised and asks what. Yuya Tenjo explains the battle strategy, pointing out the enemy's weak points. Yuya Tenjo demonstrates martial arts by locking his opponent in a headlock. The girl reports that she is shocked and can't believe what she saw. The guy makes sounds and says, He says that because they wanted to hit him, his body reacted on its own, and at the same time he screams, "Let go of me," and calls the other guy a freak, demanding that he get off of him. The guy says he's into boxing and asks to be let go. The man says he'll let him go if he calms down. The guy explains that he did it to protect himself and therefore shouldn't be detained for it. The man says he wrote everything down. Yuya Tenjo yells at the man to shut up and says he won't get away with it that easily, promising to show him. The man on the floor calls out to Yuya. Tenjo suggests going for a drink at his place. The man says that Miyu-chan is now safe and he recorded everything in HD quality, and also says that she can say goodbye to her modeling career. Yuya Tenjo says that even if he's a celebrity, he could still get arrested for it, and then yells no for a long time. A guy asks a girl if she's okay. He replies that yes, she's okay, but he says it with some uncertainty. Yuya Tenjo asks if the girl is okay and suggests calling someone. The girl says she's fine and everything is fine. The woman thanks him again for today and hopes that they can meet again. He replies that he hopes so too. The guy in the distance thanks him. Yuya Tenjo says he wonders if he'll ever meet Miyu-chan. The man explains he's learned a lot today and asks what's in the bag. The guy replies that the clothes are beautiful. He says that now he needs to go home and read magazines and watch programs. He says that he finally promised to do this. The woman says, Yuya-san. The woman reports that today it wasn't only Yuya who discovered something new. The woman says it's a magazine and explains that Miyu-san and that boy look really good together. The man says it was fun today. Yuya Tenjo announces that the first volume of the comic will be released on August 26th. The man explains that he gained a cheating ability in another world and became invincible in the real world. The next panel shows the gates and building of Usay Academy. The man says it's him and says he already heard about it from the secretary and also asks if it's true that this guy saved her from those guys. Yuya Tenjo says yes, father. The man asks if Yuya really doesn't mind. The man says it's fine and that it's rare for young people to stand up for others these days, and he'd definitely like to thank him. The man asks to invite Tenjo. A boy and a girl are telling each other about a rumor about a senior at their school named he. Supposedly a handsome guy, and people think he's their brother, showing him a photo of him. The man says he doesn't know what the rumor is about and asks them to look into it. The girl says it's rude and asks him to take what he's carrying. The guy offers to go with him because this senpai is useless. The man says he hates how he even said that pig's name, and the girl explains that they have to deal with it. The guy with the bat says don't dare mock the red ogre. The man and guy next to him are silent. The man asks what kind of magazines these are and orders them not to be distributed around the school, explaining that they are the reason for the bad grades. The girl says, "Oh, that's it." Yuya Tenjo tells Miyu that she's on the cover again. He says he really needs to buy a new TV and phone, even though he doesn't really have anyone to talk to. He says he doesn't know much about the modeling business and that he shouldn't have said that. Yuya Tenjo says he's curious about how his photos were used. The man reveals Yuya's name. Tenjo calls him. Yuya Tenjo answers. The man says he is translating this paragraph and will no longer ignore his lesson, calling his interlocutor a bastard and also asking if he thinks he is smart enough to ignore the lesson. Yuya Tenjo says even an idiot could translate it. The man says it's a very difficult paragraph from the university entrance exam and laughs that he won't be able to do it. Yuya Tenjo speaks well. He explains that he has no intention of giving up and intends to fight to the end, despite the difficulties and pressure from others. He is confident in his abilities and is ready to prove his case. The man says that Yuya is overconfident and doesn't understand the gravity of the situation. Warning of the possible consequences. The guy says, well, the man asks if everything is right. The man punishes Yuya Tenjo is chastised for his behavior, accusing him of cheating and ordering him to come to the teacher's lounge after class. The man explains that as punishment, Yuya must deliver all the boxes to the clubs before lunch, warning him that each box weighs 10 kilograms. He says no problem. The man says it's incredible, then falls silent and looks at Yuya Tenjo, who goes to the door. He says that if he can't win, he won't be able to stay in the club. He explains that there are only 3 people left in the club this year, and if he loses, the club will disband. The man on the right says he thought he'd just get beat up like last time, and that it's good that this is all he gets now. Yuya Tenjo says it's a good thing he leveled up his stats because it turned out to be easier than he thought. He says that if he is so strong, he could work in a transport company or in delivery. The guy tells his stupid brother that he can carry about 110 kilograms in his arms, so he really can work in a warehouse. Yuya Tenjo says that if they can't win, they'll have to leave the club. The girl says she's not going to give up and is ready to fight to the end. The boy explains that they must unite and do everything they can to achieve victory. Yuta and Sora say their names. The man asks if they need anything. The boy says he didn't want to look them in the eye. The guy says they've never seen him like this. The man explains that he really is their brother, and the woman says he even responded. The guy says he's needed, and also calls the other guy a little piece of shit and annoying. Yuya Tenjo asks why he is so angry and if he did something wrong. The girl says there are rumors that he's changed a lot, and they came to see it for themselves. He says he really has changed and can't deny it, but there's no reason to start rumors. The guy asks what he was even doing. The guy says he's sure he's had plastic surgery. The girl says that even if he's changed, he still looks like a pig and asks what's so good about that fake face. The guy says it's not plastic surgery, but it seems like that to them, and explains that people are watching. The group of guys tells him he thinks he's improved, but he's crap and doesn't stand a chance against them, and warns him not to dwell on himself. The woman says he doesn't answer, and the man says it's true anyway. The guy tells him that even now, Yuta and Sora still hate him, and their hatred for him runs deep. The man says it must have cost a lot to change such a lousy face, and asks how many millions it cost. The boy and girl laugh and say that it's as if anyone would buy that crazy old man's house, confirming each other. Yuya Tenjo says that's enough. The guy explains that he probably had to sell that crazy old man's house. He says he doesn't care what others say, and as long as it's all directed at him, they don't dare insult his grandfather. He says that even if they believed him, he's not going to tell them about the secret his grandfather left him, especially after. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't want to be seen like this and asks not to show it to anyone. Yuya Tenjo announces that he has no plans to return to school. The boy says that if he can't win, he'll drop out of school. The girl says he can't win. The boy explains that he's not going to give up. The guy screams that no one gave him permission to speak and that he is the worst in every way. Yuya Tenjo says he's stupid and ugly and has no future. The man watches with a smirk, while another man watches him. The boy asks what's going on. The image shows legs taking steps. The man says he fights with middle school students and that it's not okay, and asks what he's doing. Yuya Tenjo reports that he was harassing them. The other man says that's exactly it, teacher, and that he'll have to write a report about it. The woman says she's sorry. The man and woman discuss how the boy can't possibly be from Usay Academy. The man reveals that she's from Usay Academy. He watches the scene unfold. The girl says her name is Tenjo. Yuya. Yuya Tenjo asks if this is true. The boy says the face and voice are familiar to him. The girl explains that it is true, but adds that he feels as if they have met somewhere before. She asks if she remembers. The woman says it was him and asks if he remembers her. He screams and is surprised. Yuya Tenjo says she's glad he's okay and asks how he knows her name. She explains that she wanted to thank him, so she had to learn a lot about him, and admits it might sound a little rude. Yuya Tenjo retells the question of whether it is necessary. The guy explains that it's a uniform and says the girl is from Usay Academy, an elite school. The girl tells him he's lost a little weight and asks what business she has with their stupid brother. He tells her he's lost a little weight. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't like it. The woman asks him not to deviate from the topic. He says that it is true. The man expresses bewilderment. The girl says Yuya Tenjo says that Usay Academy will gladly accept him and offers him to transfer to her school. Yuya Tenjo asks what? Usay Academy is reported to excel in every academic field, in addition to the usual academic subjects, and graduates can easily join the elite in all fields after graduation. Kaori Guju introduces herself as a member of Usay Academy's student council. The secretary reveals that Miss Kaori's father is the chairman of the Usay Academy Council. After learning that Yuya Tenjo protected his daughter from bad people, made the decision for him to transfer to their school. And Yuya Tenjo says he didn't do anything and asks if he really protected. He says that there's no doubt the guy saved him. The guy explains that he's very pleased to have been invited, but his grades are SOSO and he has no talent. There's nothing special about him, and he has no place at Usay Academy. The girl tells him not to worry about it and apologizes. The girl asks to count them instead of this guy. The girl asks what he means. The boy and girl say they're 100 times better than him, their grades, sports, and everything else are better. They're often invited to participate in school club activities, and they're sure they'd thrive at Usay Academy, asking him to accept them. Yuya Tenjo refuses. He says that he can't recommend Usay to the academy if he is insulted, and the girl says that Yuya is her patron. The guy says they were just nervous and didn't find the right words, and the girl confirms it was a misunderstanding. The woman says they've already made inquiries about them. The guy reports that on the occasion of Yuya's invitation, Tenjo's background check at Usay Academy revealed unforgiving behavior on the part of most students and some teachers. The girl explains that there were also several instances of premeditated actions against Mr. Tenjo. Others. The guy demands proof and the man asks what they just did. The man reports that no one on the teacher's side tried to stop it. The girl says that they loudly threatened and insulted Mr. Tenjo, even resorting to violence. The girl says that's exactly what she thinks, that they're unworthy of Usay Academy. The boy and girl across from her express outrage, and someone in the crowd laughs and asks to look at them. Yuya Tenjo tells Yuya that Usay Academy prioritizes the individual student, and if someone is acting out of pure intent, she's more than welcome. Yuya wonders where she left off. The man asks her to put the boxes away first, and Yuya agrees. He asks if the girl always drives to school. The girl explains that her father was very worried after that incident and from that moment on. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't want to transfer to Usay Academy. Yuya Tenjo reveals that he went with her under the pressure of the moment and wonders if it was worth it. The woman asks him if something happened. He says no, nothing, and explains that it's like this. The girl says they'll be there soon. He expresses surprise. He and the woman find themselves in front of the academy building. Yuya Tenjo is excited and feels overwhelmed, as if he's entered another world. Yuya Tenjo asks Hujo if he made her late for class. He says everything is fine. The girl says that she had agreed in advance with her father, that is, with the director, that she would be late. The guy gets nervous and tells her that Kaori-sama's father is the director. The girl explains that if you don't mind, she can just call her Kaori, not Huju-san, and turns to Yuya Tenjo. Yuya Tenjo says that it would be unnecessary and asks if it really is. Huju Tsukasa says he's glad to see Tenjo. Yuya clarifies that he has arrived, after which he announces that he is the director of this academy. Tenjo Yuya confirms this. The man thanks Yui. Tenjo thanks Yui for saving his daughter and bows down. Tenjo asks to raise his head and says that he did nothing wrong. He says that his actions are exactly like that and he should be proud of it. The girl says that only Yui Tenjo came to the rescue and not many people are capable of such a thing, and also reports that he says the same thing as Huju-san. Yuya-san again, and the man says he understands. The text next to them says that they are definitely father and daughter. The image shows a cityscape with several buildings and vegetation in the foreground. There is no text or speech bubbles. Yui Tenjo reports that this is it, so this is what happened. Yui Tenjo says that, by the way, why was Usay alone at that moment? Kaori-san. The girl says that he can just call her Kaori Yuya-san, and that formality and politeness are unnecessary. He says that it is impolite towards the girl, and then begins to object, saying no, well. The man reports that his daughter said she doesn't mind and explains that there's no need to be so shy, since they're both the same age. Yui Tenjo says yes, and the girl with the shining aura is the same age, the student council president, the director's daughter, and an aristocrat. The man says that Kaori wanted to live a normal life, so she hasn't had any security since early childhood, and explains this in response to his question. The woman says she wanted it that way and someday she'll have to cope alone, so there's no need for security. The man says, however, that's what it led to and it's better to go with an escort, at least for short periods. The man explains that he himself feels awkward, but she's his daughter, and he values her. Another man mutters about independence, just in case, his daughter's wish, another time, for the sake of the future, and asks, "You see?" Yui Tenjo laughs. He says they have a good relationship, but the guy says it's completely different from his family. The man says that they will get to the main point and turns to Tenzo Yuya-kun, then reveals that he is sure Yuya has already heard from Kaori, but repeats the question if he would like to transfer to Usay Academy. Yui Tenjo is silent. Yui Tenjo is sitting on the couch. The woman says she personally wants him to move to them. The man asks how he likes the offer and says he doesn't have to worry about payment. The girl says that she heard that geniuses in the fields of sports and science gather in this academy, and Yui Tenjo reports that they are graduating as the best of the best. The guy asks if it's worth it for him, given the mediocrity of the place, to visit such a place. The man and woman listen silently. Yui Tenjo says he's thinking, and the man asks Yuya to answer who he considers geniuses. He says that a genius is someone who finds the path to truth faster than others, and confirms that the right paths to achievement and the right mindset can help a person find their way. The guy explains that genius is someone who can do everything and has a special talent. Yui Tenjo explains that, in other words, they are no different from other people, and says that it doesn't matter whether you are a genius or not, if you put in the right effort you can get closer to them. He says that there are different talents and one should not judge at such a young age, and that it is not too late to try different types of activities and have fun. The man says he built the academy to give the younger generation a similar experience. Yui Tenjo says that you shouldn't put yourself down and from now on you need to start meeting yourself halfway. The man says he can't say anything definite and remains silent. Yui Tenjo says that these words confused the interlocutor and suggests that they first simply look around the academy. He says he wants to make an announcement before class, explaining that a guest student will be staying with them for the afternoon. The students ask if it's a guy or a girl, who he is, and why now. The woman says there's no time and she'll get to the main point, asking not to be surprised. She invites Yui Tenjo come in. Yui Tenjo apologizes for the intrusion. The girl asks him to introduce himself, and the group is surprised. Yui Tenjo reveals that his name is Tenjo Yuya, is expecting a friendly atmosphere today. The man thinks he should have introduced himself differently and asks about his hobbies and habits, surprised by the atmosphere. The woman says he's embarrassed and asks where his manners are. He says she supported him and calls him a kind teacher, noting that his manner of speech is indeed familiar. The girl informs that Tenjo's seat is on the far right. Yui Tenjo says yes. Yui Tenjo explains that he is pleased to meet you. He says he's starting the lesson. The guy replies that he understands. He asks what happened. The guy explains that the others have different textbooks, but it's awkward to ask for a share. He sits down next to the guy and puts the textbook on his desk. Hyoto Yukine says that training begins on this page. Yui Tenjo thanks Hyoto Yukine, and she replies that it's nothing. Yuya Tenjo thanks her again, a little embarrassed. The teacher explains that calcium hydroxide reacts with carbon dioxide to form calcium carbonate and shows the reaction formulas. She tells the boy that there are two options on the screen and says the second one is correct. The sound of dona 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 can be heard against the background of the building. A girl asks what school he's from. A man asks what he's studying and what club he's in. Another man asks if he has a girlfriend. The guy says he's just looking around and is surprised, and says everyone is probably wondering why he was invited. The girls ask if he could be a celebrity and when he'll transfer to their school, but the guy answers hesitantly. The girl says that they confused him, and Yuya Tenjo suggests calming down first. Igarashi says he can be called Rio and suggests they get along, asking if he can call his interlocutor Yuya. He thanks and agrees. Igarashi apologizes for everyone attacking and offers to talk later, and also asks for forgiveness since the guy says nothing is happening, but Yuya Tenjo reports that it's so bright it hurts his eyes and explains that it's friendly. The guy suggests going to the cafeteria together, saying it's great. He asks if he can, and the guy agrees. He says he just hasn't had lunch, and the guy says it's great. The guy explains that it was a snack before training and asks Shingo if he will be with them, and Shingo says that he already had lunch. Yuya Tenjo asks Yuya if she minds, and she says no. Shingo introduces himself and says it's nice to meet you, Yuya T. The guy says he needs a friendly smile first. The girl smiles and is envious. The guy and girl are silent. The guy asks what he should say. The girl and guy are silent. The girl says, Yuya Tenjo says he feels like they're alike, and the guy says they're already on their way. He reports that there is a dining room here where Western and Eastern dishes consist of famous dishes from other countries and are prepared by elite chefs. Yuya Tenjo says this isn't the cafeteria he knows and asks how much money he has on him, explaining that everything is expensive, citing famous dishes from other countries and elite chefs. The man says it's a familiar cafeteria and says hello. The guy says it's better to see for yourself. He's surprised that lunch only costs 500 yen and won't break the bank. The guy explains that there are free student lunches every day, though you can't choose the ingredients, as well as lunch for students who live on their own and are on a budget. The man says that this is the director's policy and explains that he wants young people to have a variety of experiences. Yuya Tenjo says that's how it is. There is a fork and a knife on the table, and an empty cup next to it. Yuya Tenjo asks about the clubs, and another guy explains that the academy has good training and all the clubs are incredibly strong. Yuya Tenjo asks if the other guy is part of any clubs at his school, to which the guy offers to walk him there if he wants to see something. He says that, unfortunately, he doesn't go to any clubs and that he never thought of going to anything that requires money. Then he says no. Yuya Tenjo says they were just talking about snacking before training and asks what about them, guys. The man says that happens too. The guy says he's mostly a member of the Going Home Club. He says he thought he was in some kind of sports club, and another guy explains that's how it is. The girls notice the guy is new and call him handsome. The guy says that in high school he was in a football club, but when he got to this academy he wanted to try out different clubs, and in the end, without choosing, he ended up in the club Going Home. The guy explains that sometimes he gets invited to help out at different clubs, and today he's being invited to a football club. Yuya Tenjo says that means you can change clubs like this. The guy reports that Ryo-kun was invited to many clubs on the day he enrolled. The man explains that Ryo-kun is actually very active in clubs, but he says it confuses him. The guy says that he is very glad that his friend is appreciated everywhere. Yuya Tenjo says he understands and explains that the joy of seeing his friend appreciated. Shingo goes to is much more unusual. The guy says, and he replies, yeah. The guy says he goes to a gaming club. Yuya Tenjo asks if these are games, specifying that they're those same kind, like video games. The guy confirms that yes, they are. The guy asks if they allow game consoles. He says the games are a lot of fun, the programs and GG pictures are good for learning, and that single-player games are good, but online games have recently become popular where you can. He adds that, more importantly, the games were. The guy says that in a regular school they strictly forbid wearing such things, but here they are trusted and even allowed to open a video game club, and explains that he does not play them during class. Yuya Tenjo says he can't betray such trust. He says that a good school is trusted. The guy asks what club they're going to watch, and the man suggests they pick something interesting. Yuya Tenjo says that in that world he's good with a spear and a bow, and he might as well watch how others handle them, after which he ponders whether it's a spear or a bow. The man asks if it's a spear and he shoots a bow and hits the target. The man and woman express surprise and admiration at his accuracy. He explains that he's just looking around. The man insists that he absolutely must join them, asking if Yuya has any Tenjo as siblings and reports that two famous twins with the surname Tenjo participated in the tournament last year, and then asks if they are related. Three girls are discussing how some of them had good grades but behaved terribly, and one of them says she remembers someone like that. The girl with the ponytail turns to him and apologizes. A boy and a girl announce that they have shown the best results and ask to be accepted into Usay Academy. Yuya Tenjo says that it was probably his younger brother and sister, and unlike him, they are good at sports. The guy says he doesn't have that and asks what. He says that it's he, Yuya-kun, who's sure he has a hidden talent. The man says the guy is quite good too. He explains that he needs to calm down, and the man and the guy say that. The guy says it's impossible to calm down here, and the man confirms this and says they're glad they appreciate their friend. The girl asks them to be quiet, and the three guys apologize. Yuya Tenjo is silent. He says that the people here are very kind. Yuya Tenjo says they treat a talentless guy like him well. He says they don't bully others and are all full of aspirations. He talks about what's happening on the football field. The girl reports that this year the school has a new teacher who is very strict and doesn't like being late. The woman explains that he always checks attendance and doesn't forgive any infractions. The girl says that's why. Yuya Tenjo says he's wondering how he likes their academy. He says the lessons are very accessible and the equipment is very high quality, and he also says it was amazing. He explains that what struck him most was how welcoming everyone was. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't know if he has the right to go to such a wonderful school. He says that unlike him, who doesn't know what his talent is and what he can be proud of, whether he has any value at all, and that there are more suitable people. The man says to Yuya Tenjo that a person determines his own value, but on the other hand, other people can also determine it. Yuya Tenjo is silent. He says he doesn't understand. The man reports that Yuya is now Tenjo wonders if he has the right to attend this academy and asks if he is right. Yuya Tenjo says yes. The man says he believes his interlocutor has the right to do so. Yuya Tenjo says he can't believe this happened. The man says that if the guy can't find his value on his own, he can try looking at their academy, and reports on his thoughts. The man says to Yuya Tenjo that he has time for this and he should think slowly. The guy tells him not to worry and to go his own way. The man puts his hand on his head. Yuya Tenjo says he can't afford to lose. He tells his grandpa that a lot has happened today, but he has decided to study at Usay Academy. The guy says the admission is next week, and there are still a few days left. He explains that he'll be very busy for a while. Then the guy goes silent. Yuya Tenjo says the decision has been made. He says that while there is time, he will visit another world again. Knocking is heard at the door inside the palace. A castle with an inscription about the kingdom of Arceria is shown in the background. A woman invites you in. A man apologizes to Lady Lexia. The guy asks the girl if she's feeling better. The girl says it's all over and that she can't let others worry about her anymore. The man says it's good. Yuya Tenjo asks Lady Lexia to tell him again what happened at the great magical frontier. Lady Lexia says that's good. He says she was attacked by bandits and ran as fast as she could. Then she reports that a monster suddenly appeared and killed them, but they caught up with her. Yuya Tenjo reports that at the moment when I was almost killed. The woman says that she was saved by some young man. He confirms this, saying precisely. The man says that there was someone else there besides the young man, and Yuya Tenjo reports with surprise. The girl explains that the young man with black eyes and black hair was about her age and looked elegant. The man explains that he was dressed in black armor and was very strong, like a nobleman from another country, just like a knight. The man addresses the girl, calling her The woman explains that she was too scared at the time and perhaps it was just her vision. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't think so and reports that when he found her, he felt someone's presence for a moment, but then it immediately disappeared, so he thought he imagined it. The girl says that means he was real. The man explains that they don't know who he really is, but he most likely was. The girl says that means she's unlucky. The man says that black hair and black eyes are quite unusual for this country, and if that's the case, they'll be in trouble. He adds that this young man single-handedly defeated a goblin general, something normally beyond the capabilities of ordinary people, and asks what this young man could be doing there. The man says that they don't yet know who is behind the assassination attempt on the princess, and that they can't assume anything yet, but first they need to be doubly careful. The man says he doesn't understand. Yuya Tenjo states that he is in a dream and asks if this is Lady Lexia. The girl says they need to do it again. The man says they need to meet again and thank him well. The man expresses surprise. The girl says she decided to go to that forest again. The girl says it's dangerous because they might be attacked by monsters or assassins again, and asks how to persuade him, His Majesty, if even she can't cope in that forest. Then she asks if Yuya will be there. Tenjo is nearby. The girl says she's going to talk to her father and says everything is fine. The man asks Lady Lexia to wait. A few days later, Yuya Tenjo reports that he had reached this exact spot earlier. He explains that the map marks the places he had visited before. He says he remembers how a girl was attacked here near that tree. Then he says he was very surprised that monsters like the Goblin General exist. Finally, he says he'll try to go a little further today. The man reports that the forest has become denser. Yuya Tenjo says he feels a lot of pressure and wouldn't be surprised if monsters much stronger than before appeared. He says that it is necessary to proceed slowly and carefully to avoid an attack. Yuya Tenjo reports a search for creatures. The man hears the crunch of branches and sees a devil bear eating its prey. A rating for the bear appears, detailing its level, mana, attack, defense, agility, intelligence, and luck. He says that the level and attack are stronger than his and calls it disguise. Yuya Tenjo reports that his thinking in this world is becoming quite corrupted. He explains that in this world, there is a division between prey and hunters, so Yuya must be extremely careful. Tenjo says he doesn't know how strong the monsters ahead will be, but that attitude is quite normal. He says that he must survive here and uses the ghost bow technique. Yuya Tenjo says it's impossible to reach with a bow and decides to move on to the next option. Then Yuya Tenjo uses the absolute spear technique and strikes the bear. He says okay. He throws a punch. He makes a sound of pain and falls. Yuya Tenjo says that normal techniques won't work here and asks what to do. The man notices the magical attack and expresses doubt. The guy says there's a twist and asks what's going on. A blast of fire and energy collides with the wolf. The sound of explosions accompanies the action. Yuya Tenjo says he can't use magic and is simply running because he can't win. He says he's seen knights use magic, but he never imagined monsters could do it too. Yuya Tenjo asks what it is and says it's fire, really. He reports that due to the radius of this fire, he cannot get closer to it. Yuya Tenjo says he can't get any closer, then makes a sound of surprise. Nearby is a depiction of a beast with a horn that roars. He says that we should try it and squeezes something with his hand. Yuya Tenjo says that we need to stop this fire first. Then a crackling sound is heard. He says that you need to do a quick dodge and launch the spear. Yuya Tenjo reports that the fire is gone. Yuya Tenjo strikes the enemy. He says the next step is to break off the claws. Yuya Tenjo reports that the weak spot is most likely in the sternum. He says that this is his weak point. Yuya Tenjo says he can't let the beast kill him and says he will now show his full power. Yuya Tenjo delivers a powerful blow to the beast. He reports that the boundless bracers not only increase the power of blows, but also become excellent protection, the bracers never break, and one blow turns into an endless series of blows. The level is reported to be elevated. The woman asks what that sound is. The man and two knights listen silently. The man explains that this is a vast magical border, home to monsters beyond imagination. The girl remains silent. The man says it's dangerous to go any further and suggests retreating and sending the knights to scout. The girl explains that only she saw his face and that this isn't right. The man says yes, that's true, but the girl says that she must personally thank him for the rescue and that it is an honor for the royal family. The woman says he's also somewhere nearby, she thinks. The man says he's already walking and roughly remembers where she met him. The man explains he doesn't feel anything, but it seems that way to him. They say that she got this premonition from her elf mother, and they hope that her premonition will not fail them. The commander tells us not to let our guard down, and even if they notice anything, not to go far and protect Lady Lexia. One of the knights replies, yes. The man says that anything can happen to us and explains that this forest is a habitat for monsters. A crunching sound announces their approach. A group of creatures with glowing eyes moves forward. The sound of wind can be heard on the upper right edge. Yuya Tenjo reports that the search for the creatures has begun. He says there are not one or two monsters there, but many monsters. He asks if they are fighting. Yuya Tenjo says he sees elite goblins and humans. The man says there can't be elite goblins and a group of them. The knight says to fight, not talk, and that they must protect the princess. Then the knight strikes. The man falls. The man with the sword attacks the monster. The guy says he attacked. The man says with surprise. The man reports that the blow was delivered. The man says, turn around. The girl says, he should get out of here. The girl trembles. The monster makes intermittent sounds, and the man announces the appearance of Lady Lexia. The girl says she can't believe this is happening and warns of approaching enemies. The girl says he, and clicking sounds are heard. The girl screams as several monsters attack her. Yuya Tenjo announces he's taking off his disguise. The girl says it's unexpected. Yuya Tenjo explains that his true strength can now be seen. The boy strikes. The man says that this young man appeared suddenly. He says that something else is more important. The man explains that the young man has black hair and black eyes. The man asks if this man could possibly be. The man with the bandage on his head says that this is indeed the case, and the other man adds that he is acting alone. Yuya Tenjo is silent. The guy says he doesn't have time and says goodbye. The man yells at him, trying to stop him. The girl hits the guy and asks him to wait. He's surprised and asks what happened. The girl says, marry me. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't understand what's going on. A girl tells a man to marry her. Yuya Tenjo says there's no point in speaking so flippantly. Lexia herself says she's talking about marriage. Yuya Tenjo asks what she's saying. The guy looks confused and asks what. The woman says they don't even know who he really is and asks if he's forgotten his high birth status. The man explains he fell in love at first sight. The woman says that's not a reason for marriage and asks what problems there might be. Yuya Tenjo says that they might be attacked by monsters again here, so he suggests moving to his house. The girl says that this is where he lives. The man remains silent. The man says the house is in the center of a great magical boundary. Yuya Tenjo says this place feels like another dimension. The guy explains that the house is in such a place and apologizes, asking if it will be more dangerous here than in the forest. He says that it is not dangerous here and there is no need to worry, since monsters cannot enter this area. The man says they can't get in and asks if there's a high-level magical barrier here. Yuya Tenjo says that perhaps this man is not a simple foreigner, but a member of some nobility or even a grand master, and if so, we must be doubly vigilant. Yuya Tenjo asks if everything is okay with the man. The man notices that the girl has also gone into her own. The woman says what's going on and asks what the character on the left will try. He asks what's going on. The man on the right makes sounds. The man says they'll introduce themselves first. He explains that they're guarding the area. The man explains that he's Owen, and the girl next to him is Lexia's knight, Sama. The man thanks Yuya Tenjo for saving their country's princess. Yuya Tenjo explains that he was just passing by, and the man asks him to wait, informing him that there's a girl nearby. Lexia von Arceria explains that she is the first princess of the kingdom of Arceir. He says everything is fine, they are not at an official event, and thanks her for saving him, adding that they can address him however they feel most comfortable. The man explains that it is okay to address the princess in a non-formal manner. The woman says the guy didn't know anything about her, even though she thought she was quite famous, and says that such an address is too formal. The woman asks to be called by her first name without prefixes. Yuya Tenjo apologizes and asks if it's Lexia. Yuya Tenjo notices the fast. He asks not to use prefixes. The man explains that he should call them respectfully, at least at formal meetings, and the girl says she doesn't think such familiarity should be allowed, since she's a princess. The girl says it's too formal and she doesn't like it. The girl calls. The man says it's not appropriate to call him mistress in public, but it will sound special when they're alone. The girl says it's wonderful, simply wonderful, in private. The girl says it's a secret between the two of them, especially in private. The man apologizes for getting off topic. Yuya Tenjo reports that everything is fine. The man says that he seems to be having a hard time and asks if that's right, Owen-san. He says his name is Tenjo Yuya. He lives in this forest and can't say he came from another world. The man explains that they came to this forest because they were looking for Yuya. The girl says that the name Tenjo Yuya is unusual and doesn't sound like him. The girl says she really wanted to meet Yuya Tenjo and thank him personally, for which Yuya Tenjo is surprised. She thanks Yuya Tenjo thanks her for saving her twice already and says that no words can repay him for this debt, so he offers to go out. The guy apologizes and thanks her for the offer, but says it's all too sudden. He notes that Lexia-san will probably be upset about this and recalls how violently she reacted earlier. Yuya Tenjo reveals that he is not of royal blood. The girl explains that Usay is also unimpressed and suggests they become friends first. He says he's with his friends. The girl asks what's wrong with him. The guy says that being friends with him won't get him anywhere and asks if that's even possible. The man calls the other a loser who's incapable of anything. Yuya Tenjo explains that he thinks the guy could become the girl's friend, adding that they're currently communicating informally. The girl asks if. He says this is the first time someone has told him they want to be friends with him, and he would be grateful if he came over. The man replies that he is grateful too. He says it's a nice feeling. The girl says that love can also be born in friendship, and Yuya Tenjo says he'll start with friendship first. The man asks Yuya Tenjo, can he say one more thing, to which the girl answers in the affirmative. The man says that His Majesty also wants to thank him for saving his daughter. He asks what Majesty means. The guy explains that for this to happen, Yuya needs to Tenjo arrived at their palace. Yuya Tenjo says 2 palaces. He says it's His Majesty's palace. That's what it means. The man asks to be brought to an audience with the king of Arceria. He asks to wait as it's too sudden. The knight explains that there is no need to rush. Gratitude to Lady Lexia is a matter of honor for the entire country, and she is like a treasure to the king. Yuya Tenjo says that if the king does not express his gratitude, they will make themselves look bad in front of other countries. He says he knows practically nothing about the structure of this world. The man explains that this means there are other countries besides this one. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't know all the social norms yet and asks if they're sure he can go to such a place, and also suggests that perhaps he should learn more about the world in general. Yuya Tenjo explains that he can't go with them right now. The man says they don't mind. He says that together it's almost a week, he can't skip school for that many days, and if there's a chance to use the holidays it's Golden Week. The man apologizes and asks if they could wait about 20 days. The woman says they need to take care of some business before leaving. Yuya Tenjo thanks him for agreeing to accompany them to the forest exit and asks if it's a hassle. The man replies that it's not, saying he's already gotten used to it, especially if the monsters return again. He says he just got the chance to spend more time with Yuya-sama and asks Owen not to say anything inappropriate. Owen remains silent. The man asks why they chose to live in such a dangerous place. Yuya Tenjo says this place is suitable for research and training, but the danger to life here is much higher. The man asks what. The guy asks if it's that dangerous here. The man and woman react with surprise. The man says to Yuya Tenjo, didn't she know where she lived? Yuya Tenjo replies that she has her own personal circumstances. The girl says no. The young man explains that his interlocutors are likely training in some kind of martial art to protect themselves while they reside here, and that the choice of research in martial arts and witchcraft is a personal matter, and outsiders should not interfere. The man apologizes for his rudeness. The man explains that this place is called the Great Magical Frontier and is the most dangerous place in the world. He explains that demonic creatures live there, capable of destroying a single small country with their power. The man explains that this war for territory is also called a cyclical food chain. That's why we still don't know what resources are hidden there, and researchers who go there end up dying. Yuya Tenjo explains that the place is rich in various resources that no one really knows anything about, and this is the Great Magical Frontier. The man explains that he believed Yuya lived here because he was conducting research on demonic creatures and various plants, and asks why he chose. He says that means this place wasn't the original setup, adding that he thought so. The man explains that if they were attacked by a creature far stronger than the Goblin General, it could become a life-or-death battle, and he still can't calm down. Yuya Tenjo explains that it might be the monster they defeated. The girl reveals that it's the Goblin General. Yuya Tenjo says it's something. The knight says he can't believe it. The armored man says they may have encountered an incredible person. He shouts for Yuya and orders Owen to take care of Lexia. Yuya Tenjo says he's a demon. The man says he can't believe someone spotted the monster before him and thinks it's important that he's going to take on the monster alone. Yuya Tenjo reports that he initially suspected him of conspiring with those who attacked Lexiko-sama, but he is acting completely differently. The man states that his behavior is alarming, but his skills are clearly not that simple, and orders them to bow their heads. He says that although they fear him, they have entrusted their lives to him. Yuya Tenjo reveals his name and asks who they really are. The man says that the problem now is different and explains that if other countries lure him to their side, he will become a big threat to them. The woman says that Yuya Tenjo is incomparable and asks if there's no other choice but to use drugs to lure him away. The man reports that they made it out alive, and the other man explains that this is the way out. The boy says he can't believe Yuya defeated the poisonous bear single-handedly and explains that the monster is being attacked by a large army. The man says its power is capable of destroying the balance of this world, and he explains that he remembers the route perfectly well. Yuya Tenjo asks Owen-san if he'd be willing to meet at this location in 20 days. Owen-san replies that he would, and the man informs him that they will be there to meet him. The guy says that she herself. The man and the guy express surprise. The girl says that it is very sad for her to part with them here. Yuya Tenjo says that Lexia-san is herself. The woman says that despite the man's refusal to marry her, she is not going to give up, and his courage and kindness to her and the knights today have won her heart even more. The man listens. The woman says that the next time they meet, she will try to win his heart. Yuya Tenjo says he will do it and orders everyone to be ready for it. He says okay and expresses hesitation. The man says that, of course, he's glad she's feeling that way, but asks if this is really the best option. Against the backdrop of a private residence in the capital of Montreux, a man asks why Lexia is still alive. Yuya Tenjo, in one of the rooms, says that he wants to hear an explanation of what happened and asks to tell how it happened. Regarding the recent incident, the guy reports that they managed to separate Lexio-sama from her escort, but she managed to escape all the way to the Great Magical Frontier. The man says that forest. Yuya Tenjo reports that the followers pursuing her were killed by the monster, and she was rescued by her personal knights. The man asks how it happened and explains that the monster killed the followers but left Lexia alive. The woman says she doesn't know the details. The man says the other person is useless. He says okay. A man says he really hopes his involvement in the assassination attempt wasn't discovered. Another man says the subject of the discovered followers was mutilated beyond recognition, so there's probably nothing to worry about. A hooded man shouts that it's probably true. The man makes no attempt to justify his failure and calls the other worthless trash, telling him to remember who keeps him alive and thanking His Highness for that. The man with long hair says he's giving him another chance, but if he fails again, there will be no mercy. The man in armor. Yuya Tenjo reveals that he gained a cheating ability in another world and simultaneously became powerful in this world. The page also states that this is Chapter 10, titled New Life, and announces the immediate release of a second volume of the comic. It's reported that a lot has happened, but the man says that she's really doing him good. The man confirms this with the word yes. Yuya Tenjo announces that from today on he is officially a student at Usay Academy and asks if the other guy thinks so. He says he felt like he was being stared at too much this morning and felt completely out of place. The man says it would be better if Yuya started working on her self-confidence. The guy says it's not worth worrying about. The man says that in any case, if something is bothering you, you should talk to Kaori or him about it. Yuya Tenjo expresses his deepest gratitude for everything. The man says he saved his daughter and that's the least he could do. The woman says her daughter has some errands to run this morning and can't be there, but she's also worried about the man. The girl greets the officially enrolled tens. Yuya asks to take care of him. Yuya Tenjo says okay, sensei. The man says welcome. A boy asks where the new student will sit. The man suggests throwing a welcoming party. He asks if he can share a textbook with her. Yuya Tenjo tells everyone to be quiet and announces that class has begun. The girl says you. The man is silent. There's a match going on the football field. Yuya Tenjo says it's gym. Yuya Tenjo explains that the ball goes into the goal and the goalkeeper tries to block it, but doesn't have time. He says that Rio is truly amazing. The man says that they are doomed, and the girl says Rio again. Yuya Tenjo asks Yuya if she's going to play soccer. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't have his gym uniform yet, and explains that it won't arrive until next week. Yuya Tenjo asks Yuya what about her, will she just watch? He explains that after the warm-up the girls can do whatever they want and says that he is relaxing. He reports that most of the girls come to watch the boys play. Kazama says she's glad to meet the new student and apologizes for scaring him. Yuya Tenjo says he's also happy, Kazama-san. The girl tells him to just call her Kid and that she'll call him Yuki-kun. Yuya Tenjo says he's still not used to calling girls by their first names. He says that everyone is so friendly with each other, so he needs to get used to it quickly. The girl explains that he was looking, and another girl asks if she came to look at the guys. The top right of the scene shows a basketball game. In the top left, a girl comments on how energetic the boys are and suggests that maybe she should watch them too. Yuya is nearby. Tenjo says it's dangerous. He says he thinks it's just the nature of guys. A man with a raised fist says they won't let him be the only one looking cool, and curses. Another man explains that their speed and motivation have increased. The guy says it's football and calls the others idiots. The man tells everyone to surround him. Yuya Tenjo says they're very close and that the girl came here to fight Yukain. The girl explains that's not true. The boy yells at Rio to stop. The girl explains that she just wanted to chat with Yuya-kun for a bit. The guy says everyone is an idiot, explaining why. Yuya Tenjo says football is a team sport. In the background, a group of people exclaim in surprise as the ball flies across the field. The woman says it's an unfortunate young nobleman. The boy and girl listen. The guy announces that he has the ball and explains that he is a young nobleman from Usay Academy, and that the opponents have no chance of winning, offering to look at his beautiful figure. Yuya Tenjo says this guy is an idiot too. The girl explains that it's Ichino's kuni. He says to watch carefully as this is his secret technique, and the girl explains that it's better to say freak. The guy yells that the dog is an idiot and asks where it is running. In the upper right corner, a man is yelling to duck, a girl is saying ah, and in the lower left corner, several people are yelling kaira and ducking. Yuya Tenjo tells her that if she falls, she'll break. The girl says she won't fall. He reports that Kid, a man and a girl look at the falling girl. The girl runs to the ball. Yuya Tenjo kicks the ball while holding a girl in his arms, while two men and a girl watch the action. A man with short blonde hair says, "Wow." Another man with a beard and glasses asks if that's true, and a girl with short dark hair says it with. He reports that he seems to have overdone it a bit. He wonders what it was and whether it relates to his skill. The girl in shock says that she is Yuya Tenjo, asks if the girl is okay and asks her to forgive him, promising to let him go right away, and also asks if he did something to her. The girl asks him what just happened. He says he's not sure, it all just happened on its own, and that it was just like in a manga or an action movie. The girl notices that he has muscles, even though you can't tell right away, and says that he feels. The girl says that the guy's back is so strong and how cool it is, and Yuya Tenjo says that even if he trains a lot, he won't have muscles like that. Kazama says it's dangerous and asks Keed to let him go. Keed says it wasn't on purpose and explains her name is Keed. Kazama yells that he understands. The guy apologizes for what happened and asks if everything is okay. The guy says he's fine. The girl says she's fine too, thanks to Yuya. The man says it was something and asks if Yui wants it. Tenjo joins the club. Yuya Tenjo says he's not sure yet. The girl says she was surprised. He loudly apologizes and apologizes. The man says he's very sorry. The girl says she wasn't even hurt and that everything is fine. He explains that the rumors were untrue and calls the man an interesting guy. The guy apologizes and says he'll devote his whole life to the girl. The girl is silent, then refuses and laughs. The guy curses. The man says that then and turns to someone. Ichino's Akira says he is Ichino's Akira and thanks him for his help, asking if he can call him Kuyaku. Yuya Tenjo says he will take all precautions, warning them to be more careful next time and asking them not to scare him. The guy says he just needs to get used to it and he says he sees he's not a bad guy, just a little quirky. The girl says she needs to clean everything up and screams that she'll run. Yuya Tenjo says he's right and he's funny. The man says everyone here is really funny. A woman informs that talking on the phone, smoking, and eating are prohibited in the women's restroom. She explains that violations are punishable by law. The woman says Yuya-san has been attending Usay Academy since today. The girl explains that if it weren't for the student council's orders, she would have been able to get to the principal's office this morning. She also suggests that maybe she could talk to him for a bit after school. The man asks if he's made friends with his class yet, and Yuya Tenjo says it's noisy here. He explains it's because there are so many people. The girl says he was really cool and shows a muscle on her arm. He says the girl is too loud. The girl turns to Kaori and asks if she has gym class now. Kaori asks how it went. A girl says that the transfer student Yuya is so amazing. The woman responds, addressing Yuya-san. Yuya Tenjo asks what happened next and then says she slipped. The girl on the right explains that just when she thought she was going to fall, he saved her, and he also hit the ball with his left foot and scored a goal, and asks if that's crazy. The girl on the left explains that it was exactly as Keed said, and that it was just like in the manga or... The woman says she's sure he has a girlfriend and asks if that's true. The girl asks if Yui is dating. Tenjo is with someone. The guy explains that he doesn't know anything and is just curious, and also says he's not talking nonsense. The girl asks not to jump to conclusions. The woman says she feels relief and wonders what that feeling is. A man says he'll see you, and another man says see you later, Yuya. Yuya Tenjo says that Kaori. Kaori answers with a question, and Yuya Tenjo expresses surprise. The girl says that. The guy asks if Yui is going Tenjo home. Yuya Tenjo says that she has some things to do. The guy asks and she. The girl asks how the first day went and says that the guy is new here. He says that she will be glad if he enjoys life at the academy. The man reports that his daughter is also worried about Yuya Tenjo, and Yuya Tenjo says that Kaori is worried about someone like him. The guy says it's a wonderful place and everyone is so kind. How sweet of her. He's still unsure of himself, but he's very happy to have come here. The girl thanks Kaori. Yuya Tenjo tells Mr. Yuya to come here. Yuya Tenjo says she heard that a lot of people gather near this store at noon. The man replies, oh. He reports that he gained a cheating ability in another world and became incredibly powerful in the real world. The man says that leveling up changed his life. Yuya Tenjo says there's a store near the school that sells alcohol, and some other stores also sell television equipment. The girl says there's a cafe there. The man asks what's next. He explains that it's a date or she just needs something from him, and the guy says that he understands, but a woman asks Yuya Tenjo asks if he's familiar with the school grounds and offers to give him a tour, telling him about it and showing him around. Yuya Tenjo replies that there's no need, he's already very grateful, and tells Kaori not to waste her time on him. The woman asks permission to speak with him. The guy says it's a store that sells crepes. The girl explains that crepes are sweet, stuffed pancakes. The man explains that you can choose the filling to your liking at this store. Yuya Tenjo asks about the pancake shop, And the girl says she really wants to try the delicate pancakes and explains that they have limited editions like premium strawberries which are hard to come by. Yuya Tenjo says it's amazing. The girl says they're going. The guy asks what exactly. The girl and the guy hold hands. The guy says that the two look like a cute couple and hopes that they are. And the man says that this is the Usay school uniform and asks if they have seen these guys before. And the man suggests that maybe they are from a magazine. Yuya Tenjo says he feels like he's being watched, or maybe he's hallucinating. Yuya Tenjo says he probably shouldn't be here. The girl in the school uniform exclaims, "Oh my God," and offers to shake hands, extending her hand. The woman says there's something wrong with them. He apologizes. The man says he thinks they made a mistake. Yuya Tenjo explains what's going on. The girl apologizes and explains that she accidentally touched Yuya's hand. Tenjo and asks for forgiveness. Yuya Tenjo is surprised and apologizes in return. The girls in the crowd comment that they are a very cute couple and that it was necessary. The girl reports that it was the first time she held hands with a man other than her father. Flashbacks show someone asking for help, and others telling her not to hit her too hard and that it would be better to punch her. He says he's very sorry and asks if she's okay with that. The guy says it's delicious. Yuya Tenjo reports that she made it just in time for the last pancake. The guy says there's no need to count the cakes. The main thing is that they're delicious with blueberries. The girl points out that it was her last cake. Yuya Tenjo says it's delicious. The girl suggests they start eating. Yuya Tenjo and the girl report that the tart berries and sweet whipped cream go perfectly together, with the soft dough seeming to envelop them, and that the secret sauce recipe is complex, with a small amount of sugar working well. He says it's his first time eating pancakes, and now it's clear why so many people love sweets. The girl says sweet food is delicious, and he invites her to try her pancakes, asking if he'd like to try other flavors. Yuya Tenjo says he should try the pancake just once, but the girl asks him to wait, then insists he take a bite. The girl explains that the pancake is also very tasty and takes a bite of Yuya Tenjo, who thinks that this is an indirect kiss, and he says the dessert is really delicious. The girl says she likes it too. He says she already told him that. The girl says, "Oh." Yuya Tenjo says he can't take it anymore. The girl apologizes to him and says that she didn't notice how it happened. He apologizes and asks if she didn't like it. The girl explains that it's not that and says there's nothing wrong with it, and the guy says that the girl just ate him and that's it. Yuya Tenjo says he understands. It was delicious. The guy asks if the girl wanted him to eat it. He says he'd like to share his pancake now. The girl asks what and explains that she doesn't understand what he's talking about and doesn't know what she's thinking. He says he'll try her pancake. The girl says that the interlocutor is really good too. Yuya Tenjo says he can't believe this happened. The girl says that she really wanted to give him a tour and was therefore a little worried about it, and he thanks her for today. Yuya Tenjo says it's all fine, what he showed her was enough, and asks Kaori if she knows much about traveling stores. Kaori replies that she just wanted to spend time productively and explains that she's constantly moving because of her father's work, so she can't even make friends. The girl says she felt so good with him. He says it really is. Yuya Tenjo says that Kaori is rich, kind, and values her family very much, but he doesn't understand why she says that. He says that it was the first time he had this much fun with someone, and that it was fun. He says that he wonders if Yuya-kun has friends or a girlfriend, to which Yuya replies that he has neither friends nor a girlfriend. Yuya Tenjo explains that she understands. Then the man says that if the girl doesn't mind, they'll see each other later. The boy and girl notice the falling boxes. The boy asks if everything is okay. The girl says, oh, and then the girl smiles. He says he'll help with it, and the man says it was painful. The guy says thank you. Then Yuya Tenjo reports that this guy is now that boy and that his previous job is part-time. The guy says he hasn't heard from his girlfriend in a while, and she says she's sorry for the inconvenience. The guy says that they might know each other and asks to wait, and Yuya Tenjo is silent. He says he's seeing his interlocutor for the first time, but thanks him anyway. The man explains they have urgent business, turning to his boss. He thinks he's not recognized. Yuya Tenjo says that he has changed during this time and confirms this with the word true. He tells Kaori to listen to him and asks how she recognized him. The girl says it's no wonder he didn't recognize her and calls him Yuya-kun. Yuya Tenjo says it's because his appearance has changed and asks why. The girl explains that Yuya had a piercingly clear gaze when he helped her, so she remembered him. Yuya Tenjo asks about the look. The girl confirms that at least the appearance has changed. He says she immediately realized it was Yuya-kun. The man recalls that he had such eyes and that Kaori remembers his appearance. Yuya Tenjo tells his brother that he looks so happy and asks what he's doing here. Yuya Tenjo remembers the girl he hated so desperately and because of whom he was humiliated. The guy says he was just passing by and asks what he needs. He repeats the question, asking what exactly the guy needs. The guy says he is Yuya, a student at an elite school, and asks if he would be allowed to talk to an ordinary mortal. Yuya Tenjo says that if the girl does have that day, she should discuss it with him personally, and addresses her by her name, Kaori. The blonde-haired man says that this man remembers him, adding that he thought the elite had forgotten about him. He tells Yuto that he has some questions for him. Yuto reports that security is already here and expresses irritation. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't care and the man says goodbye. The man says he likes it. He says that everyone is here and calls Kaori-sama. Yuya Tenjo says he sees it. The woman says that these two are just getting started, and the man says that they need to spoil their faces a little. The next day the girl calls Yuya Tenjo, asks him to look here. Yuya Tenjo says good morning to Maple. The girl says the second magazine on the cover is him and asks if that's true. He replies that it's someone else. The man says the magazine was for sale and he confirms it. The guy says the photo shows a man with a sour expression. The girl says it's Yuya Tenjo and admires his beauty. Yuya Tenjo explains that they still sell magazines like that and is surprised, asking if he was a model. He says it was difficult because of the paparazzi following him and that he must be awkward next to such a beauty. The girl says it's the best shot. He asks when they took it. The girl asks if he's too close. Yuya Tenjo says there's more to them than just friendship and that he can't be fooled. The guy tells him it's true. The girl says that maybe the guy will do this or something like that later, and the guy denies it and says he didn't do anything like that. The girl explains that she misunderstood, and the guy says that it's clear. The guy says he doesn't know what all this means and asks to take a look here. Yuya Tenjo says what it is and calls the new model a hottie. The guy says he can't work because it's all been so overwhelming, and says they're looking forward to seeing what happens next. The man explains that the details were kept secret because it's personal information. He explains that, as he said, the guy isn't himself. A young man reports that people were watching him and he didn't know it, despite having no TV, phone, or internet. The man explains that the man is frozen, and the woman says it seems he didn't know it. Yuya Tenjo says he thinks there will be a scandal, and the man. He says it's cool to have a celebrity as a friend. The man in glasses agrees, saying it takes his breath away. He confirms this with the words, yeah. Yuya Tenjo says he didn't think he mentioned it, and the other guy confirms that yes, he is. The first guy asks if he's a friend. The guy says that if the girl doesn't mind being with him, then everything is fine, and explains that perhaps he jumped to conclusions, since it was unexpected for her. The guy says he's going to call the police, and the other guy says he doesn't understand what the other guys are doing. A man yells to shut up as another man falls and screams. The man with the bat explains that the police won't come, and until they do, he can do whatever he wants. The manga's title suggests that the hero gained a cheating ability in another world and became unrivaled in the real world, and that leveling up changed his life. Yuya Tenjo is shown in front of a building, and the title of Chapter 12, My Hero, is also revealed. The guy asks what's going on and says it's a motorcycle gang. The girl asks what they're doing there. He says he's seen the sign before and explains it's the Red Ogres gang sign. The guy asks what it is, the man says it's a local criminal group, and the guy explains that he doesn't understand why they needed to come to the school. The man says it's a criminal group, including Araki and the guys who bullied him. The man explains that this group is called the Red Ogres. The guy says he doesn't understand why this is happening. A man and a woman are standing among a group of people on the stairs. Yuto says his name and Sora repeats it in surprise. Yuya Tenjo says it can't be because of him. The man, his eyes closed, steps forward. He says that if he can't win, he will die, and asks not to feel sorry for him. He explains that he can't allow himself to die because he wants to see his father come home. Yuya Tenjo sits up and says he's fine, to which the guy asks what's wrong with Yuya. The girl says Yuya is pale as a corpse and asks if he's okay. The man with glasses says the police will be here soon, and the guy replies, "Great, Shingo." The guy says it's best to leave it to the police because there's nothing he can do anyway. The man says what's going on with the girl there and that it's dangerous. He's standing in front of a building, and several men are watching her. Yuya Tenjo announces that she's the chair of the school committee and asks what the school needs, explaining that the principal is currently away. A man with short blonde hair whistles, and another man with dark hair says that Yuto is that girl and that she saved them a lot of time. The guy says the girl really needs his older brother, and the girl confirms that she seems scared because she's shaking. The girl tells the man that the girl says the police will be arriving soon, and the guy asks if that should change anything. The guy says, "Well, then," the man says, "Don't people care about this?" The girl watches silently. Yuya Tenjo reports that she quickly entered the building. The man explains that no matter how loudly the girl speaks, they are currently outnumbered, and when the police arrive, they will have a hostage. The girl says she'd better worry about herself. The bearded man and another man say they remember the girl they were chatting with outside the store well and call her lucky. He reacts with surprise to their words. Yuya Tenjo says they'll get along this time. The guy says things are really bad. The girl explains to Kadia that he shouldn't do this, as he'll put himself in danger. Kadia says he can't leave her alone. Yuya Tenjo says that Kaori is in danger. He can't move from fear, even though he has leveled up and become strong. The girl says everything will be fine. He says he called the police. He explains there's nothing he can do and calls the situation disgusting. A guy addresses a group of people and says that he's not good at sports like Ryo-kun or Yuya-kun, and that he's completely useless in a fight, but nevertheless he had to do something without hesitation. At that moment, another guy calls out to him. The text says that at that time he didn't even think about it. Yuya Tenjo says that Grandpa would never abandon someone in trouble and that he should do something. Yuya Tenjo explains that he doesn't think the man hated her. The woman asks the boy if he's okay, and the man yells at him to shut his mouth. He says that since then he's leveled up, made friends, defeated many tough creatures, become more confident and no weaker than he was before leveling up. The girl says that she immediately recognized Yuya by the same eyes and penetrating, clear gaze. He's in. The girl says Yuya Tenjo, if he feels bad, he can go to the infirmary. Yuya Tenjo says he was more confident than he is now, and this time he'll make them apologize. The man warns them that they're on the 4th floor. The girl and boy notice that a man with a short haircut reports that something terrible is happening. He asks if he called him the inferior brother. The guy says he can do whatever he wants with this goldfinch and is glad that Yuya Tenjo finally comes out. The man asks for it to hurt. The guy says he's gonna smash his face in and put him back in his place, and yells at him to get it, "You fucking bastard." The girl and boy call him. The girl and boy shout Yuya and Yuya-kun. He uses a technique called precaution. Yuya Tenjo reports the analysis. The man screams that the bastard won't be able to dodge it. The woman says that they are still devils but nothing more, and the man says that their speed and strength are like those of ordinary people. Yuya Tenjo says he'll try to hit them less. A group of people scream to hit him. Choco Mikado says nothing can be done against pure power and orders him to sleep forever. Then Choco Mikado delivers a powerful blow. The man says he doesn't understand what's going on. He lets out a battle cry and delivers a powerful punch. Several men retreat. He tells everyone to get away from this guy, and one of the men calls him boss and exclaims that this is amazing. The boy announces that, at Yuto's request, he will finish off the enemy. The man explains that he will now reveal who the red ogres are and hopes the enemy doesn't die prematurely. Yuya Tenjo looks ahead. He says he's starting to get used to it. He says this guy is different from the others and fast. The guy Yuya Tenjo asks if he practices martial arts and says he recently read about it in a book. Yuya Tenjo replies that he'll crush the guy. Then Yuya Tenjo strikes, parrying his opponent's attack. A guy throws sand in the face of a man who says go blind, idiot, and explains that the idiot was hoping for a fair fight with his bare hands. He notices the sand and yells die. The guy explains that, unlike demons, humans use weapons in deception. The man says, "That's it." The guy explains that it's weakness detection. Yuya Tenjo says this will teach him a lesson. Yuya Tenjo stands over his fallen opponent. Yuya Tenjo exhales. The city's backdrop tells us it's difficult to fight humans. In the background, police officers order the girls to get in quickly and let them go, who responds rudely. He says they're red ogres and the guy explains that they're. Yuya Tenjo says thank God. The boy screams that he can't believe what's happening. A gang of men stands next to two fallen opponents. One of them shouts for everyone to follow them. Another orders them to punch the enemy, and a third calls out Yuya Tenjo is the best boss. The man screams that Yudo is a bastard, blaming him for everything. He says that it is all his fault. The guy yells, "Stop, you bastard." The man explains that if it weren't for his fucking idea, none of this would have happened, and the guy says he's never asking for this. The woman screams for Yudo to be released, but the man says no. Yuya Tenjo asks to stop. The man tells her to shut up. The girl screams. The man says they're both guilty and calls one of them a piece of shit, threatening to watch him scream after he kills them both. The guy screams, "Ah," then says no. A man tells people to stop, and another man calls for people to grab the cops. A police officer tells people to calm down and asks who this guy is. A man in uniform says, "Fuck you," and calls out, "Hey!" The man says it's no use, they're out of control. The girl asks him to wait and says there's no need. The man orders the boy to die. Yuya Tenjo says he's not going to let the guy with the tattoo hit another guy. The guy with the tattoo expresses surprise. The guy says let go. The man says he doesn't understand where he gets so much strength from. A man with a beard explains that he is coughing. Yuya Tenjo stands nearby. Yuya Tenjo remains silent, watching the man. Yuya Tenjo asks Yuto if he's okay. The guy says he doesn't understand why he does this and calls him a fucking big brother. Yuya Tenjo says he's a fucking big brother. The man says they don't even notice him now and says they'll resolve everything here and now. The man orders him to disappear. He says, "Come on." The text says he hasn't forgiven Yuto and the others. And now, when he thinks about it, dark thoughts creep into his head. Yuya Tenjo says he can't leave his siblings and calls his older brother AF***CK. He says that's just the kind of person he is. The man says that he won. The girl says Yuya-san. The guy says the girl explains that how. Yuya Tenjo says it's cool. The guy says Yuya is cool, and the girl says it's good that everything is okay. He asks Kaori if she hurt him and wonders if she's okay. The girl asks him if he's okay. Several people discuss what class he's in, calling him. The woman says yes and thanks Yuya Tenjo. Yuya Tenjo says he's so happy. Yuya Tenjo addresses a boy named Yuta. The boy responds with the word, brother. He says he doesn't understand why this is happening. The guy says that he has been making fun of his interlocutor for so long, but he asks why he is like that. The boy announces that he is the younger brother. Yuya Tenjo says that he experienced a lot of pain and did not understand why he was treated like that. He suffered from an inferiority complex seeing how the other two and himself were treated. But the worst thing for him is that he cannot forgive how they mocked Grandpa. The guy says that family members should help each other, and the girl says that this is what she thinks is right. The guy says he is, and the girl cries and says whine. Yuya Tenjo says he's sorry. The girl is crying and sobbing. The boy is on his knees crying loudly. The man and girl stand nearby and watch them. In the background, two people are visible at the gate. In the foreground is a police car with the inscription police. Yuya Tenjo says he's sure they'll get what they deserve. But the girl says that doesn't mean their future is already decided. The woman says that it's great, and he says that Yuya-san has been through a lot of pain because of these two. Yuya Tenjo says that there was a lot between them and he can't forgive them for everything, but that's okay because that's who he is. He says that what happened to him today involving Yudo and the others was also arranged by his brother, and explains that no matter how it looks from the outside, this is his way of thinking. Yuya Tenjo apologizes for disturbing Kaori. Kaori tells him not to worry about it, as Yuya saved her again today. Yuya Tenjo hopes he made it in time this time. The girl says that Yuya-san arrived just in time both last time and this time, and calls Yuya-san her hero. Yuya Tenjo says that the girl reports that he says that until recently he was always alone and thought he had nothing. The girl with her hands raised explains this to Yuya. The others stand nearby and listen. The guy says he went to another world, thinking that only there he could feel peace of mind. Yuya Tenjo says he was wrong, but after leveling up, he met good people. Leveling up changed his life, and it looks like everything is just beginning. The image shows a large castle with multiple towers and spires against a cloudy sky. There is no speech or text. In the audience hall of the castle of Arceria, there is a man standing with his back to another man sitting on the throne. The man says he did a good job and orders Owen to raise his head. Owen says yes and calls the man Your Majesty. King Arnold von Arceria reports that he has heard of Lexia's savior. The man reports that there was such a young man on the great magical border and asks if it is true that he is a foreigner. The man says that for his country he has an unusual appearance and name, and since he has a surname, he is a complex person. The man states that he believes Yuyadano is a reliable person and asks if anyone doubts this, noting that it makes sense. The other man remains silent. The man says that they plan to invite him to the castle in a month and if Yuya Tenjo will personally take a look at it at the reception. The man says that this person then remains silent. A man asks if it's true that he proposed to Lexia, and another man explains that no, it was Lexia who proposed to him. The man yells that he deceived his sweet daughter, and the other man asks him to calm down and says it's not true. The Orc King shouts a warning not to wave the national treasure around and demands to know where the bastard is. Yuya Tenjo reveals that he is the bastard. The Orc King appears with the following stats: level 600, mana 5000, attack 20,000. He says hi. Yuya Tenjo says that he really dragged the puppy into the battle and asks to forgive him. The dog reports that the wound was not made by another monster. The man asks if the wound was made by another monster. Yuya Tenjo says he thinks he's found a healing potion made from the juice of a citrus-flavored herb he's harvested from his garden, and offers to let him take a look. He then explains to the dog that she might not like it, but suggests giving it a try. He says the medicine will heal the wounds and asks if it hurts. The dog says he won't do anything bad to her. Yuya Tenjo reports that the dog is sniffing his finger and the piece of food he is holding in his hand. Yuya Tenjo explains that the dog is interested in food and approaches him cautiously. He says it's Gav. He says this with surprise. Yuya Tenjo says this creature is a spirit that guards the forest. He explains that spirits don't usually show themselves to people, but this one seems to have decided to make an exception. He says he's glad it worked. The dog barks and touches his hand. He calls the dog cutie. The guy then says and asks, "Will you come with me?" The guy says woof, laughs, and says the dog seems to understand. Then the guy says woof again. Yuya Tenjo reports that the taming skill has been acquired, explains that there is a certain chance that you can make a monster your ally and says that this scared him and also that it was a long time ago. He says that such things exist and calls him a monster comrade. He says that then he is not just a puppy. A message appears stating that the taming of Black Fenrir was successful. He expresses surprise. Yuya Tenjo says it's weird because level 500 isn't the level to tame Black Fenrir with. Come with me? The girl asks if this is a pet store. He says he needs a collar for his dog and asks if there is one nearby. The girl asks him if he has a dog. He replies that the dog appeared yesterday. The girl asks what it is like. The guy asks what. The guy says maybe in the shopping district. The man says to go after school. Yuya Tenjo says he can't believe this is happening. A girl explains to another girl that the dress is very cute and suits them. A guy tells another guy that they have to go. The girl asks what he decided to name him. The girl on the other hand says Knight sounds cool. He says he named him Knight and is glad he liked it. The dog says Knight. Yuya Tenjo announces that he is home, and the dog barks. Yuya Tenjo says the dog is a good boy. Yuya Tenjo apologizes for leaving the dog to watch the house alone. He says he bought a collar today and that the white one goes well with his black coat. Yuya Tenjo says that if they go outside, they need a collar and asks if that's okay. The dog responds with a woof. The guy says great and suggests going right now. Then he makes a waffle sound. The image states that the royal comb is a rare item of the Orc King that nourishes and adds shine to any hair and restores dead hair roots, which is why some aristocrats sell it at a very high price. It also states that it is a bonus. Yuya Tenjo says good afternoon, and the man responds in kind. The girls look at Yuya Tenjo and they say that the guy and the dog are very cute. He announces that he will be accompanying the cat today and explains that she can't go alone. The guy explains that the cat is very timid and afraid of cars, so he decided to take her with him. Yuya Tenjo says the dog isn't afraid of cars or does anything dangerous, and the man says it's a smart little one. Yuya Tenjo invites the dog to take a walk to the great magical border after lunch. He reports that a beast has appeared in his room that was not supposed to appear. He explains that this creature is a forest spirit, and he did not expect to meet it here. Upper right panel. A man runs, holding a dog on a leash, which pulls forward. The upper left panel states that several days have passed. In the lower right panel, a man explains to a woman and child that the dog is a small dog. In the lower left panel, a man says that the path to find it is already well known. Yuya Tenjo says it seems there are more people than before. The girl explains that it might be a popular spot. He asks what happened and calls Kaori. Kaori says she was returning from shopping and asks how Yuya is doing, who replies he's just out for a walk. Kaori asks if that's the baby. He introduces her to Knight, his new family. Kaori says it's nice to meet Knight and introduces herself, calling Knight soft and cute. Knight is happy to be praised and explains that he doesn't understand what it feels like. The guy asks Yuya Tenjo what kind of breed is this. Yuya Tenjo replies that he doesn't know, since he picked it up and thinks he can't tell her the truth. He then reveals that it's Black Fenrir. The girl reports that the baby looks very happy and glad that Yuya-sen picked him up, and he says that he is happy if that is really true. The baby makes a sound. The woman says she's sure of it and makes a sound of surprise. The girl says it's God who brought together a handsome guy, a puppy, and a beautiful girl in one place. The woman says she doesn't understand. The man asks if this is Yuya-san. The girl is surprised. The man is silent. The woman says it's Yuya Tenjo as she thought. Yuya Tenjo responds by saying Mu-san. The guy asks why the girl is here. The girl says they haven't seen each other in a while and thanks her for taking care of her on set. And the guy says he's glad to see her again. The girl says that her house is nearby and that she often walks here at this time. Yuya Tenjo explains that this is Mu-san, with whom he had a joint photo shoot at the shopping mall. The girl with the dog says Yuya Tenjo, what is this man? The woman calls Mu-san. He says this is his friend Kaori and a member of the Knight family. The man says hello. The girl with the dog makes a woof sound. The woman says that Kaori-san and Knight, yes, and says that she is the model Miyu and nice to meet you. The girl says she needs to go, laughing, and the guy reacts to this. Yuya Tenjo says it's nice to meet you. The girl is surprised and asks what's there. The girl approaches him and asks if he often walks here. He replies that he has been here often since Knight appeared. The man asks if he will continue to walk here, to which he replies. The woman says that this is true, and Yuya Tenjo responds with surprise. The woman says she'll go then and says goodbye to Kaori-san and Knight-kun. He says yes, and the girl with the cat makes a wow sound. The woman remains silent. Yuya Tenjo says he never thought he'd meet Mu-san in a place like this. The man says he forgot to tell her he saw the magazine. The guy says he feels close to Mu-san. The girl turns to Yuya-kun. Yuya Tenjo says he felt lost during filming, but Mu-san was very kind to him and a good person. The girl asks if he has a girlfriend. The girl says that then maybe they are dating. She asks if they are dating. The guy says that, first and foremost, Mu-san is a wonderful person, and someone like him isn't right for her. The girl replies that this isn't true. The man explains that they just met by chance and denies any sense of déjà vu. Yuya Tenjo reports that nothing is wrong. The hooded man remains silent. The dog makes noises. The hooded man expresses bewilderment. The girl says the dog is barking and calls it Knight-san. He asks what Knight is and demands they stop and let the dog go. A man with a chainsaw shouts that someone needs to stop the kidnapper. An older woman orders the man to shut up. The man warns him that the attacker has a knife, and he orders him to get out of the way. The attacker says the bag is flashy and contains something important. Yuya Tenjo yells at night, who barks. The girl asks her grandmother if she's okay, and her grandmother replies that she is. But the woman says wow, the man says an exclamation mark in surprise. The guy asks what kind of dog it is and demands that the animal be released. The guy then yells at the fleeing animal. The man says this damn dog will kill him. The man expresses surprise. Yuya Tenjo attacks swiftly. He grabs the opponent's arm. The caption states that the scene is dedicated to martial arts. He strikes the man, knocking him to the ground. The whistling sounds of the wind can be heard against the backdrop of the city. The boy thanks his grandmother and asks if she is okay. The grandmother says that she is happy to have the bag her grandson made for her back. The woman tells her grandfather. Yuya Tenjo says. He tells his grandmother that he's sure her grandson would be upset if something happened to her and asks her to be careful. He adds, An elderly woman thanks a kind young man. Yuya Tenjo says Yuya-san. The girl talks about what he told his grandmother and believes that there are people who are worried about him too. Yuya Tenjo asks if there's anyone else who worries about him besides Grandpa. The girl says she's worried about Yuya. Yuya Tenjo reports that now, before, and even the first time, he is fine. He tells her that he can't be with her because he doesn't want to hurt her and explains that he doesn't want her to suffer because of him. Yuya Tenjo says not to be too reckless. Yuya Tenjo tells them to watch, and so does Night-chan. Yuya Tenjo thanks Yuya. Tenjo apologizes. The dog barks. The dog barks. He reports that with Night's arrival, exploring the other world has become more fun, and explains that they are safely exploring the great magical frontier while leveling up. He says that Night is doing a great job. The top right text states that the deeper you go, the greater the chance of encountering monsters with more than just high stats. A crystal deer is shown in the center right. Its stats are listed in the lower left. Level 630, mana 15,000, attack 10,000, defense 10,000. Yuya Tenjo says that such indicators in this species use magic, and asks what to do about it. He says that even though he was using camouflage, he noticed something. He explains that the opponent is ideal as a high-level opponent. The man is fighting a large animal, and a dog is running alongside. In the upper right, a dog jumps and growls. In the upper left, the dog crashes into a horned creature, causing a powerful impact. In the center, the dog continues its attack, heading toward the horned creature. In the lower right, a man screams, and the man on the left reacts with surprise to what's happening. In the top panel on the right, a man in armor stands in front of a huge explosion or energy vortex. In the bottom panel on the right, a man in armor announces that it is hot. Yuya Tenjo reports that he can now deal with monsters that use magic, and not just the devil bear he fought earlier. He says he's not saying there's only one magic. He's reacting seriously to other magic, noticing its emergence. Yuya Tenjo says everything is fine and thanks Yuya. Tenjo calls out to Night, who responds with a woof. Yuya Tenjo explains that they need to decide what to do with the two types of magic, and notes that there are two of them here too. There are no speech bubbles or text in the image, just an image of an animal's head. No one speaks or communicates anything. Yuya Tenjo says he's relying on Night. Yuya Tenjo spots the danger and jumps, dodging Yui's attacks. Tenjo and Night react to what is happening at the same time. He says he doesn't know the principle, but maybe he controls flame with the red horn and water with the blue one. Yuya Tenjo reports that a fire has started in the forest and explains that the animals are trying to escape the fire. In the right panel, a deer is making sounds. In the middle panel, a dog is jumping on the deer, growling, and in the left panel, a close-up of the deer's eye is shown. Yuya Tenjo explains that if he overuses only one side and then uses the other, he will pour water into the middle of that flame. A deer is shown reacting to the explosion in the background. The sounds around it make the animal feel surprised and wary. Yuya Tenjo reports that he has leveled up, and his stats are shown. No job, level 240, mana 60-50, attack 80-50, defense 80-50, agility 80-50, intelligence 54-50, luck 87-50, combat points 0, and the evaluation skill. He says it worked and calls night. The dog barks. He reports that the number of dropped and strange items has increased, listing crystal deer meat, crystal deer fur, and the S-magic stone, and notes that the release. Yuya Tenjo says he has a magical weapon he received from a sage, but it's a bit exciting. The text block states that the crystal deer's antlers, a flame crystal and a water crystal, sell at a very high price and can be refined into a special magical weapon. He says it's a bath set. He explains that he brought the royal comb he received earlier and some nice everyday items. Yuya Tenjo says it's a bathtub. He explains that it's a luxurious, portable outdoor bath set that allows you to enjoy various types of baths anywhere. Cypress, stone, jacuzzi, electric, and more, and choose the effect that best suits your needs. He says that he couldn't resist the temptation to take a bath and confirms this with the word yes. Yuya Tenjo says it's a mysterious technology and wonders what he's doing. The text states that the transparent veil is enabled, and a veil that can't be seen from the outside can be used to protect privacy. He says the bathtub in his house is narrow because he's grown up, and he considers it a miscalculation. He explains that it seems like for the first time since he got this body, he can take a bath with his legs straight. He says it's not much longer. The man next to him, Yuya Tenjo, says this is a body. The man explains that he came into this world, inherited the sage's house, and leveled up, but since then, much has changed. He says there are many things he doesn't know and wonders why he lived in such a place, where this house, weapons and items came from. The man wonders who this sage is. Yuya Tenjo says there's a lot to explore now, then suggests they go out, turning to Night. Night responds with a woof. He reports that with the map skill, he won't get lost on his way home. He explains that walking may require preparation, especially when exploring remote areas. The image shows a forest with tall trees. There is no text or characters. The chapter title is The Sage's Cave. The image states that the protagonist gained cheating abilities in another world and became invincible in the real world. It also states that the third volume of the comic is extremely popular. Yuya Tenjo explains that the cave contains glowing stones that can be used as a light source. He explains that these stones not only illuminate the path but also help navigate in the dark. The top right corner shows burning torches on the cave wall. He says this is not a natural cave. Yuya Tenjo reports that there don't seem to be any lurking goblins here. Yuya Tenjo says Night is still acting strange. Yuya Tenjo asks if there is something ahead. He says what it is. The man hears barking and asks what it is. Yuya Tenjo says that it is not just a skeleton, but a skeleton that was once a man, and explains that it cannot move because its bones are tied together. He says, "Eh." He explains that he was scared and asks if someone died here. The man says it's not a goblin. The dog barks. The man says it's a book. Yuya Tenjo says that he might find out who the person is and says that it's probably him. An inscription appears addressed to anyone who was able to reach this place, with the title Notes of a Sage. Yuya Tenjo asks if this man is really a sage. The man uses the word sage with a questioning tone. He says that the story of his past will probably be boring, but asks to listen to it. Then he says, "Let's get down to business and talk about the old days." The man reports that for a long time there was nothing that was not subject to his control. Yuya Tenjo explains that all he needed was a chance to start, and that's what people call a gift. Magic, swordsmanship, art, cooking, sculpture, blacksmithing. He excelled at absolutely everything. He says he did it because he could, and that's all. The man reports that he eventually stepped into the realm of the gods while still alive. The elder says that strength overflows the body of the interlocutor and that they would like to accept him as a friend. Yuya Tenjo reports that he froze in surprise and explains that by agreeing, he would become an immortal god, and the very essence of death would never touch him, something that is not available to any mortal. In the first frame, the man says that he'll probably think he's an idiot like everyone else. In the second frame, the man explains that he refused. He says he wanted to die a human being. The man says that he is a sage and Yuya Tenjo is silent. The man states that the fact that the other person is reading this book probably means that he is strong enough to escape from a place teeming with demons. It is reported that Yuya's strength is beyond doubt. Tenjo is incredible compared to other mortals. The woman explains that she will eventually scare people around him and asks what happened to her. Yuya Tenjo says that he doesn't want his interlocutor to have the kind of life he lived, and maybe it's none of his business. He says that he thought he lived in the very depths of the forest, and that he would turn out to be a misanthrope and an egoist. The man reports that in reality he was unhappy and lonely, like no one else, and could not even die like a human being, although he lived like a human being to the depths. Yuya Tenjo says that someone is worried about him, a complete stranger who is a good person. The woman says that someday, as the wise man said, everyone will start to fear her. The man says that this is bad. The man reports that Yuya has Tenjo will definitely succeed and advises taking your time and making lifelong friends at your own pace. Yuya Tenjo says he will face not only his friends, but also himself. He says he can't understand why this is happening. Yuya Tenjo says that the grandfather says something similar. The girl thanks. He says that they seem to be having a conversation and explains that there are blank sheets of paper. He says that to thank the other person for sticking with him until the very end, he will tell them about one thing that they wanted to know. The guy says that. Yuya Tenjo says he wants to know something. The woman explains that it must be magic. He says that this is now a real conversation and assumes they want to know about magic. Yuya Tenjo reveals that he uses fire magic to create a protective barrier around himself. He explains that this barrier is capable of repelling enemy attacks and protecting him in battle. He reveals that the book he's holding contains important information. He explains that it's an ancient manuscript capable of unlocking the secrets of the past. He explains that he now has the key to solving mysteries that have long remained unsolved. Yuya Tenjo says that in this sequel he has collected his entire theory about magic and says that if you continue reading, you will understand everything in general. He explains that even after reading it, it won't be possible to use magic and says that it's not quite like that because it's him and there's no point in trying. Yuya Tenjo says that the person he's talking to appears to be from another world. The man explains that beings from this world have a so-called magical circulation within their bodies and a magical circuit, which, in simple terms, is similar to blood vessels. Yuya Tenjo asks if the interviewer understood. He explains that the inhabitants of this world have hearts that produce not only blood, but also magical power that runs through the entire body, and the interlocutor lacks this chain, so he cannot cast spells. Then he says that it's a pity. The man says that he is no longer in this world, so he gives away his chain and wants Yuya Tenjo used her. He says that his goal is so valuable that it is considered a sorrow to the higher ones of this world, and explains that if it is not used, it will disappear, but now he has appeared. He reports that he has received something incredible, although he was far from it and for so long, and that everything is fine. He tells. Yuya Tenjo says he doesn't understand what's happening. The man makes an exhaling sound. He reports that he's written down some more magical theory, and now the interlocutor's body will understand everything, although he won't be able to read the theory. He explains that the transmission was successful, and now the interlocutor is free to do whatever he wants. The skeleton reports that much has been said, but he wants to wish happiness to whoever reads this book. Yuya Tenjo says that there are things in life that cannot be taken back, and so from this moment on he asks to live in such a way that he will not regret anything. The sage says he'll be glad if the book and his magic chain are of any help in the future. The sage sends his best wishes. Yuya Tenjo reports that he received the sage's notes in the cave and immediately decided to test the magical theory written there. He explains that magic is the embodiment of imagination, but before that one must feel the magic that lies deep within oneself, and that an effective way to achieve this goal is meditation. Yuya Tenjo says that meditation involves closing your eyes correctly, concentrating, and looking within. He explains that he is from another world and therefore originally possessed neither magic nor the magic chain he received from the sage, and that the beings of this world have magic circus. He says that his body is filled with something, and that something is definitely here, something hot. Then he asks what it is. Yuya Tenjo says that perhaps this something was magic, and it is reported that the skill magic control has been obtained. He reports that at first there was a fever, but then it gradually subsided, but the feeling that something was there did not disappear. He explains that by feeling this, he can control the power as he wants. Yuya Tenjo says you need to sense the magic to figure out what to do next. He explains that finding a being of this world means discovering their magic circuit. Yuya Tenjo says that after feeling the magic, there is only a small matter left to do, and gives an example that if they want to. He explains that magical words and chants aren't always necessary, as they're auxiliary means of reinforcing the image, but words can be directly linked to the image. He adds that names would make the magic easier to use. Yuya Tenjo says that singing is not necessary, you just need to imagine the image. He says it's good to start with water magic because fire is more dangerous. Yuya Tenjo explains that the shape of water is a sphere and says that this is the name for this image. He says water balloon and is surprised, asking if he succeeded. The dog barks. Yuya Tenjo says he and the dog are wizards, and the dog barks again. Yuya Tenjo reveals that the dog is also a knight. He says that since they're already here, they should try something else, and then says that they need to deal with this first. Yuya Tenjo says that a water bubble should pop funny when you touch it. A boy and a cat react to an approaching fireball, the boy screaming in fear. The fireball crashes into the ground, causing a powerful explosion. Yuya Tenjo is silent. He says it's good that it wasn't fire, and the dog makes a woof sound. The text says that after that, he practiced control for a long time. It is reported that this is the capital of Montreux. The slums are reported to be located outside the city center. The man says that here. The man reports that the wall seems solid. The man explains that he needs to check to see if there's anything hidden behind it. The man says that there is nothing in this world but emptiness and darkness. It is reported that the Dark Guild is located here. The man with the bandaged face says they can't afford to lose, as it would mean death. The man with the bandaged face explains they must win to survive. The men at the table say they are ready to fight and have no intention of giving up. The man in the cloak says it's a nasty place and that he didn't want to come here. The masked man explains that he'll have to use the Dark Guild, but the Corn's family can't afford to fail any longer. The man with the mustache says something from behind the bar. The man explains that the content is the investigation and murder of the subject. The woman says that she wants to request it. The masked guy says there's a list of available positions and is surprised that he's available. The man explains that he's lucky. He'll be right there and says he's quite in demand. The man says he's taking it now and asks if it's okay. The man says he's here. The man walks up the stairs. The man breathes heavily. The hooded man says he can't talk about what he saw and that it's too dangerous. A man in a mask speaks about. The hooded man claims to be a bounty hunter, confirming it hesitantly. Yuya Tenjo reacts with surprise. The hooded man asks if there's an order. The hooded man asks what it is. The masked man remains silent, touching his chin with his finger. Yuya Tenjo states that he cannot afford to lose. The man says that's enough for a personal introduction and asks if he scared her too much. The man makes a frightened sound. The mercenary bounty hunter reveals that his name is Bounty Hunter. The guy says that Yuya is not interested in him. Tenjo, and Yuya Tenjo explains that it's enough for the guy to pay him. Yuya Tenjo informs that hiring him will require a large sum of money. Yuya Tenjo assumes that the boy has a request for him. The man says that we need to look at this first and says that the latest rumors are mentioned here. Yuya Tenjo says that a large castle is depicted against the night sky. Yuya that she wants to take a month off, and until then, she will faithfully perform her duties and study. The woman says she has no intention of running away, even if she is closely monitored. The girl exclaims that a whole month is such a long time. The woman asks if the girl isn't too much. The man explains that he's not an observer, but merely an escort. He then adds that since the attackers haven't yet been caught, it's difficult to say his personal safety is safe, and asks for the man to understand that he needs to be on guard at all times. Yuya Tenjo says he thinks if the girl's face looked like Yuya's, it would distract him from his thoughts, but that's impossible. The girl asks if that's impossible. The man sighs. A man in armor appears and announces that he will be keeping an eye on Lady Lexia, noting that he is a poor impersonator. The girl reacts with a grin and says, "Oofed." The man on the right laughs and says, It's not like that at all. The girl says she's motivated and thanks Owen, asking him to make her laugh. She says she'll try. The man holds the portrait and remains silent. The man says he's heard many disturbing stories about the Dark Guild and similar places, and hopes everything will be all right. He explains that all the attackers were killed, and despite the princess being far from her guards, she was the only one who survived. The man tells. The masked man explains that aristocratic squabbles are complicated, and says the other one feels like he's trying to win the favor of the first prince. Yuya Tenjo says it's just a guess. The masked man is surprised and asks how Yuya even gets around in the higher echelons. A hooded man says that a bath is a luxury only for the rich, while another man explains that no matter what aristocrats wear, their appearance is always neat. The man says rumors about the first prince and his entourage are well known here. He then tells the man to shut up and offers a 500 ruble advance, asking if the man will take it. The man says he will take it on and confirms this with the word yes. Yuya Tenjo announces that he has left. The man remains silent. The image shows the title of chapter 17, titled Encounter in the Forest. The text explains that the hero gained a cheating ability in another world and became incredibly powerful even in the real world, changing his life. The authors and information about the reprint of the first 3 volumes of the comic are also listed. The top right text speaks of a great magical boundary. The girl breathes heavily and rushes into the attack, shouting crack. Yuya Tenjo reports that she heard that the princess is planning to visit the great magical frontier for a second time soon, and suggests that the one who protected her last time will probably be there, after which the man asks to be there at that time. Yuya Tenjo tells. Rocks and a small waterfall are visible on the river. The water flows between the trees. The background of the house indicates that the action takes place in the real world, in a house. Yuya Tenjo says how difficult it is and breathes heavily, leaning back. He says woof and turns his attention to the dog. He picks up the dog and tells Knight to listen. The man says there is a limit to how far one can explore the magical boundary on foot, so he is thinking of magic that can instantly transport oneself over a distance. Yuya Tenjo says that something is somehow dangerous, explaining that teleportation is impossible due to the risk of getting stuck somewhere, flight is impossible due to gravity and propulsion, and transportation is impossible due to the lack of a proper road. The man says that although it is a problem, nothing can be done about it, and says, woof. The man says that he went to another world to unwind. Yuya Tenjo says it's a. The scene depicts a portal surrounded by a glowing energy field, located in a forest. Yuya Tenjo informs about the need for orientation, opening the door and moving. He says he can teleport wherever he needs to and that he doesn't have to think much. Then he tells Knight to come with him. Yuya Tenjo informs them that they are very close to the exit of the great magical border, and that this is the place of their next meeting. He explains that this magic can only reach places he has already visited, and in the future, the number of places visited will increase. He says Knight and Knight makes a sound. Yuya Tenjo says something happened. The man hears sounds of a struggle. The man notices this and reacts. The boy tells them they need to run into the forest to escape. The man explains that enemies are chasing them and they need to keep up. The girl explains that there's a safe place up ahead that they can reach. The girl says, damn, there's no end to them. The man reports that the girl was attacked. Yuya Tenjo asks Knight what's wrong. Yuya Tenjo says that he must help anyway. He says the goblin's arm flew off and asks if she's just defending herself, but fighting. He says she doesn't need help right now and explains that if he uses magic or a spear, he can hit her. The woman says that one can still be dealt with, but when there are many of them, it is difficult, and the man says that these are elite goblins. The guy says it's on the right. The man says it's a trap. The man and the guy shout about a trap. The image shows a girl lying on the ground with her clothes torn, a leaf falling nearby. The sound effect conveys the fall or movement. There is no dialogue in the character's speech. The guy says that it is not a person but a monster, and explains that the monster attacked them. In the right panel, a girl announces that she is wounded. In the left panel, 2 monstrous creatures growl and threaten. In the upper right corner, text states that the celestial whip grows with the number of swings and automatically hits the target, wrapping around them, tearing them to pieces. In the upper right, a man with a bat stands in front of two creatures. In the center right, a man leaps forward. In the center, a man says, "Great. She's doing great." The image contains no text or speech, only trees and light shining through the foliage. Yuya Tenjo says she has come to her senses and asks if her interlocutor is okay. He says there's no point in moving and asks where the girl is. The girl says she was indeed attacked by a pack of elite goblins and is surprised that this guy was able to deal with them alone, asking what he did. He explains that he carried the girl. The girl says it's visible and asks what. Yuya Tenjo shouts, "Hooray!" The man, confused, asks what he should do now. He says that you can first drink the contents of the bottle to heal the wounds and to not see. The girl says Yuya Tenjo says she's never seen packages like this before and asks what the letters are. The man asks what it is and if it heals wounds. Yuya Tenjo asks what it says and the man asks if it's poison. He says he'll try it first and that it's not a bad thing. The girl says she'll try to keep the bottle as far away from her lips as possible and on the other side. The woman says she doesn't care and will have a drink. She says that if he wanted to do something to her, he would have done it while she was unconscious. The man exclaims that the clothes have reportedly been returned. Runa thanks Tenjo Yuya, thanks him for saving her and says she hasn't had time to thank him yet, introducing herself simply as Runa. Tenjo Yuya states his first and last name, and Knight states his first name. Tenjo Yuya is surprised by Runa's last name and asks if she is an aristocrat. Yuya Tenjo asks what they were doing here. The girl says she was going to kill the princess and says she can't tell him the truth. He says it's a training session. The man says the training will take place in a place like this. The woman says that it is not good here, then says ahem and asks what Yuya is doing Tenjo on the border. Yuya Tenjo explains that he came from another world and that he shouldn't tell her the truth. He says it's a workout. The man is surprised and asks if it's a workout. The woman says she doesn't think anyone here could be practicing anything. The guy asks Runa if she's going to continue training here and says it might be rude of him, but it's better to do it in a safe place. Runa agrees and explains that this is training but the order. The woman says that if they attack in packs, it's not safe to go alone. The woman says it's dangerous to go alone. Yuya Tenjo asks if they're finished. The woman offers Yuya Tenjo joins her training for a short time. He says he needs to stay here for a while, but he understands it's dangerous. The girl says he's also practicing here and suggests they practice together. He replies, The girl says he is more than capable of defeating a pack of elite goblins and wants to train with him. Yuya Tenjo says he's afraid to leave her alone and doesn't know how long it will last. The man says he understands and agrees. The man explains that the wounds have healed, but he needs to recuperate, so not today. The girl says that if he says so, it must be so. The man says he's glad. The girl says that she will wait for him tomorrow, since they will have a joint training session, and thanks him, allowing him to switch to informal you. Yuya Tenjo says he will improve and thanks Runa. The girl apologizes for the sweat and dirt, he says not to worry about it, and then the girl exclaims. Yuya Tenjo says that even though the other man isn't worried, he can't help but be concerned. The man suggests taking a bath if Yuya is worried about that and asks her to wait a bit. Yuya Tenjo is surprised and repeats the man's words about the bath and the request to wait. He says that's what a bathtub is for. The girl says that isn't a bathtub a luxury for the rich and asks if that's true. He says it is. Yuya Tenjo says the rune is on Knight. Knight replies, okay. The man makes a woof sound. First, the girl releases spinning spirals toward a group of enemies, who fight off the attack. He then explains that it's been a couple of days since he started training with rune magic and notices that the threads are becoming increasingly deadly. The girl says that without Yuya, Tanj. The woman says Gus, the man says Gus. Yuya Tenjo thanks Knight. He says he's glad he has a friend to support him in battle, and that she was a little clumsy at first, but that's all gone now. He explains that training has improved her physical abilities, and that even though the rune is shrouded in mystery, she takes her training seriously. The girl tells Yuya that she can take a bath after today's training. Yuya tells her name. The guy says sure, and tells her that she apparently enjoyed taking a bath and does it every day after her workout. The girl says it's great and that she's looking forward to the night. Yuya Tenjo says haha and expresses doubt. Then Yuya Tenjo remains silent and says HM. He reports that the rune accidentally missed the girl's leg. The girl says, ah. And the man replies yes. Yuya Tenjo says that's better and asks the girl if she's sure she doesn't need the healing juice. The girl replies that she does. She explains that given how potent the juice is, it's probably expensive, and she can't rely on it, plus it's nothing serious. In a small, the woman says that she is just a burden to him. He looks at her. The woman lowers her gaze. Yuya Tenjo says that he needs to hide his weakness, otherwise it will lead him into even greater danger. The woman says that for as long as she can remember, she has not had a family. The woman reports that she did everything she could to survive and fought desperately for her life. She explains that she hid her gender and used her powers to kill her opponents. A man says he was nicknamed a bounty hunter before he realized it was the only way of life he knew. Yuya Tenjo says that he doesn't think Ruina is a burden at all and that he's worried about her. He says that he is. The girl looks at him silently. Yuya Tenjo says you are RR. The man is silent. He says he can't understand why the girl is so nervous, since he simply asked if she wants to go to the movies with him. The girl explains that she's not used to such offers and therefore feels awkward. The guy offers to have a snack, the girl agrees. Yuya Tenjo asks Runa if she eats jerky. Runa says yes, it's important to stay in shape. The girl says she usually eats fruit from the trees, but doesn't think it's a good idea to touch it in the demon's lair. The man says he's never seen fruit like that and doesn't know if it's edible. Yuya Tenjo says he might be able to determine. He says the mushrooms are poisonous. He explains that this is an assessment. The man and the girl turn to each other. The man says something to the girl, who is surprised. Yuya Tenjo explains that he's about to show you how to control water and asks you to watch carefully. Yuya Tenjo says that water is life, and if you learn to control it, you can do a lot. Yuya Tenjo announces that he will now create water fish. Yuya Ten. He announces that the dish is ready. The girl expresses surprise and admiration. Yuya Tenjo and the girl notice the monster approaching. Yuya Tenjo says the monster is heading straight for them. Yuya Tenjo and the girl prepare to attack, and the monster rushes at them. He says it's meat. He and the girl notice something and express surprise. The girl says the food is edible, and the guy explains that it is indeed edible. The girl smiles as she tastes the food. A panoramic landscape with rocks, trees, and a cloudy sky, without text or characters. The girl says it's delicious. The man says she really can do anything. Yuya Tenjo explains that he's accomplished almost nothing and says he can't do anything alone because he's surrounded by kind people, at least recently. The girl understands that his surroundings support him. He says they were very nice to him, and the girl says she's a little jealous. Yuya Tenjo says you're welcome. The woman says, thanks anyway for the food. It was delicious. Yuya Tenjo says they weren't cute at all, but okay, and says the woman was also collecting ingredients. On the right, the man asks what to do with the remaining meat and says it can be frozen for later. On the left, he says water will be needed for freezing. Yuya Tenjo reveals that he is using freezing. The guy says he overdid it and doesn't know how to unfreeze the object. The girl explains that it was magic, even without a spell, and that a normal person can't do such a thing. The guy says that maybe the object will thaw on its own. The woman says that how could she not have guessed before? No one would want to train there. He is strong enough to withstand the elite goblin police, and to tell the truth, she hasn't seen any other people there besides Yuya. Yuya tells Rune that when she wants to eat, and asks. Yuya Tenjo asks Runa what's wrong with her. Runa replies that nothing is wrong. The guy says let's call it a day and asks if the girl wants to go to the bathroom. The girl remains silent. The guy says he has things to do next week. The man says the other one should go first. Yuya Tenjo asks if she is sure, to which the man says that he will go after her. The guy says okay then and asks is that how it is? The woman says this. Yuya Tenjo says he feels very good. And the dog barks. Yuya Tenjo wonders what's going on with Runa, as she was always the first one to go to the bath. He says that hot springs can help you relax and feel better. Yuya Tenjo says that he smells and that's why she was acting so weird. The sound of a door opening can be heard from the right side of the stage. Yuya Tenjo says he's sweating terribly and needs to wash up properly. Yuya Tenjo explains that he doesn't want Runa to hate him. Yuya Tenjo asks what this is about. The guy yells at Runa, asking why and what's happening, and asks her to wait. The guy apologizes, says he'll be done soon, and expresses regret, but then says he'll just leave. The girl with long hair holds a towel and reacts to what's happening. Yuya Tenjo reports that the download is in progress and asks how it happened. The girl washes Yuya's shoulder. Tenjo. He thanks Yuya for all her help and says that he has become stronger thanks to her. He tells Yuya thank you. He is surprised. Yuya Tenjo says he wasn't strong before and wanted to train too, and that the goblins would have killed him if it weren't for her, asking for a chance to at least thank her. The girl says she should thank him. Yuya Tenjo explains that gratitude. The woman says that this is not all and that he has saved her many times. The girl says she was able to smile again, eat without fear of food poisoning, and enjoy spending time with someone. The girl says that if only they could continue to grow stronger together. The guy smiles back. The man reports that the bounty hunter's hands are too dirty. Yuya Tenjo says that if there are no problems, then we can begin. He explains that you should first put your feet in the water to get used to the temperature, and then gradually immerse your body. The bounty hunter says he is a bounty hunter. He says to kill the princess and find the stranger. Yuya Tenjo reports that so what? The woman says the word towel. Yuya Tenjo suddenly covers his face with his hands and makes a sound of surprise. The man and woman are silent. The girl asks if he saw it, but he remains silent. The woman says she is very sorry. Yuya Tenjo says Runa told him not to worry, but he needs to apologize again. The man asks what he's holding and hears a dog barking. Yuya Tenjo screams, clutching his head. He says he forgot to tell her he'll be busy next week. Yuya Tenjo says it must have been his imagination. The girl says that Yuya was so bright. The girl says Yuya was so bright. The man explains he did it to make him think about who she really is. The man says he'll probably never know. A woman says goodbye to Yuya. Yuya Tenjo reveals the chapter title, The Incomprehensible Power of Fire. The girl explains that he gained a cheating ability in another world and became unusual even in the real world. Ms. Sawada announces that the long-awaited school field trip will be next week, and explains that, as indicated on the handouts, she is the homeroom teacher. She asks if the students are ready, to which they respond affirmatively. Yuya Tenjo says that even promising students like him can struggle socially, so for their well-being, they need to leave their comfort zone and experience new places, and their goal is to strengthen their mental stability. He explains that this essentially means getting used to the change of scenery through a tour. He says he understood. Yuya Tenjo announces that they will now be split into groups, and this time she herself has decided how to assign them. The class is indignant, asking why, calling it tyranny and expressing dissatisfaction, while Yuya Tenjo calms the class down by saying that they don't want her to. He explains that, after all, this is a school trip and a good opportunity to strengthen relationships between students, and if the students are in a group with their acquaintances, they will not be able to establish communication with new people, so, simply put, they need to make new friends. Yuya Tenjo says it's hard to be an adult if you don't know how to make new friends. 3 people react with fear and anxiety. He says what it means to have new friends, and the board announces the distribution into groups, which includes Ichinos, Kazama, Kenzaki, and Tenjo. The girl tells Yuya Tenjo that they are in the same group, and Yuya Tenjo replies that it's nice to see someone familiar. The girl says she's also glad they're in the same group. Yuya Tenjo names the girl Keed. The guy greets and says that he is also in the group with the interlocutor and is glad to meet you. Yuya Tenjo says there's no need for suffixes and that such an address seems too cold. The girl says they're now comrades and suggests calling her simply Akira. Yuya Tenjo says he saw him during soccer and it's nice to meet you, Akira-kun. The woman says. Kenzaki Rin says that it seems like this is the first time they've spoken and asks him to take care of her, adding that he can call her whatever he wants. He lets out a scream and tries to break free. The girl asks him to let her go, and the man says that if she keeps quiet, He'll even call her Prince. The girl is surprised and asks him to hurry up. The man explains that he'll only call her Prince if she stops talking. But the girl refuses and asks why. Yuya Tenjo says that's enough. He informs them that they will be heading to a boarding house booked by the school, where the natural beauty is amazing, and reminds them not to forget to read the brochures about what things they need to take. Yuya Tenjo reports that they will find out about the pastime on the spot. The girl says he's holding something. He thanks her and explains that it's his first trip, and he's wondering what he needs to take with him. The man says he doesn't think it will be like going on a trip to another world. The guy says they need to take their things with them, the bigger the bag, the better, and other small things. The girl explains that this is too vague and asks what they'll take with them. Yuya Tenjo says that to start with, of course, cards, how could we do without them? The guy says that if they take over the games, he'll be responsible for the snacks, they need to have a test of courage, he doesn't think it's the right time of year, and of course they need juice but no soda. He explains that the backpack will shake up nicely. The girl says that they definitely need games to spend time together and strengthen their friendship, and Yuya Tenjo says it also says other little things. The man explains that such things are no longer banned after middle school. The girl asks, "What is it, Tenjo, and has he ever?" He asks to be allowed to say at least one word and suggests calling him Prince. The girl explains that he pronounced it wrong, and the other girl laughs and says that he figured it out. He wonders if he is the weirdest one here. Akira says that Yuya has quite. The guy says a lot of people are packing first aid kits and says that's normal. The man explains that you need to bring an extra t-shirt, as it will be hot out there, as well as work gloves and towels. Yuya Tenjo says there's no need to worry too much. The guy points out that they're only there for one. He says he only has a school bag. The guy asks if Yuya has another bag and suggests they go shopping after school and buy her one. The girl explains that it's a bit of a long walk from school to the store, but it's close to the station, and asks how she can get there. The girl suggests having some fun. Yuya Tenjo says they're just shopping before their trip. The girl asks if everything is okay and if she did the right thing by going with them, and he replies that of course it is and it is more fun together. Yuya Tenjo says they've decided to go shopping before their trip, and the girl asks if they're heading home yet. The boy and the man say, "Just think, Kari-san is coming with them," and the boy explains that he's surprised he's so close with Yuya, as it's quite unexpected. The woman explains that she's the director's daughter after all, and thought it would be quite difficult to get close to her. And the girl is surprised and asks, "Seriously?" The girl on the right says yes. The girl on the left explains that they met when Yuya saved her from a robber and asks if that's how he got into their school. The man in the center says yes. The guy says it's not that big of a deal, but he's the one who ended up getting beat up. The man explains he couldn't have done it, he'd have been too scared, and the other man says it's pretty impressive. The girl explains that he confronted some bikers who came to the school and saved Kid when she was in danger. Yuya Tenjo says he's like a hero. He says that he is his hero. Yuya Tenjo announces that they've arrived. The man explains that they'll pick up Yui's backpack first. The guy says there are arcade games and such. The girl explains that she's going clothing shopping with the girls. Another man asks if his favorite pastry will be available at the bookstore. The girl says it's her first time hanging out in such a large group and asks if she needs to adhere to any rules of conduct. He replies that he doesn't know either. The girl says it's his first time too, and he explains that he's never had the opportunity before. Yuya Tenjo says that they are so innocent like they are from another universe and adds both. He explains to the man that the backpack is very comfortable and suitable for everyday use. The man explains that he's looking for a backpack for school and asks if this one is suitable. He says that this backpack is lightweight and roomy, and the man agrees that it is exactly that. The girl reports that a new arcade opened in the shopping center this year. Yuya Tenjo says that you can win a lot of prizes there, and another girl says that she wants to go there. He says they've finally reached the spot and announces it's time to begin. The girl on the right explains that everyone is ready and waiting for the command. The man on the left says he's checked the equipment and it's working properly. He says they need to focus and work together. The girl, Yuya Tenjo, says there's no need to worry, because everything will be fine, and explains that they can accomplish this together. The girl says she also believes in success and is ready to support the team. The man explains that despite the difficulties, it's important to remain calm and act thoughtfully. He says he fell again. The man looks away silently. The girl asks what's going on. Yuya Tenjo says he wants this kitten and tries to catch it. He says it's so hard. The girl says okay. That's enough for today. The guy explains that since he's already here, he might as well try, and the girl laughs and says it's actually pretty hard. The man and the guy ask if Yuya is going to pull something out, and the girl asks him to try. Yuya Tenjo says hold on. He says that he was the one who pulled it out. The guy says that he can take it and asks if he's serious. The girl thanks him and says that she will cherish it. The guy reports that they played well. Yuya Tenjo says Yuya was incredible and broke the shooting record. The girl says Shingo was absolutely killing it on the taiko. The man explains that anyone can do it. The main thing is to remember what to do. He says he couldn't handle it. He asks Kaori if she's okay. The girl says that he's probably tired already. Yuya Tenjo says she never thought hanging out in a big group would be so much fun. The girl explains that these brands are pretty cute for their price, and they can all be found here, and also says she's been here before with her friend. The girl suggests they take a last look at the clothes and another girl. The guy reports that the girls left, even though they were walking together. The man explains that the girls take a long time to shop and asks if he didn't know about it. He's serious. The guy says he has some ideas in mind for his coupon app. Yuya Tenjo says fine. The man says let's walk for now too. The girl says yeah. The man reports that the girls are really taking a long time to shop. He explains that 2 hours have passed. Yuya Tenjo says that they are meeting here and says that they will probably arrive soon. The girl explains that the toy she's holding is a gift from him. She says that now the toy will always be with her, and that this is very important. Yuya Tenjo says the girl seems overjoyed. The girl, frightened, replies that everything is wrong and asks what it's all about. Yuya Tenjo explains that she was asking if she wasn't glad he gave her the toy. The girl remains silent and clenches her. The woman explains that after that incident, he's had a lot of secret admirers. The girl with glasses says that high school students are talking about him, and the man says that he's exactly as they say. Yuya Tenjo says that he did jump from the 4th floor and get into a fight, and the girl says that, of course, it was really cool. The girl explains that even after this, he always comes to her aid when she needs it, and asks if this is a common thing. He remains silent. Yuya Tenjo says that since they're done shopping, they should hurry to the guy's place, as they've been waiting for a long time already. The girl says welcome back. The woman apologizes for keeping them waiting. The girl thinks she'll have to come back sometime and agrees. The girl reports seeing smoke and asks what it is. He says it's a fire. The boy and the man look toward the fire. Yuya Tenjo says there's a fire. The boy is surprised and asks why the alarm didn't go off. The man reports smoke coming from the upper floors. The girl screams at everyone to stay calm and not push, while people panic and run, screaming for everyone to run. He asks if the girl is okay, and she confirms. He wonders if they came down from above and if they know where the fire started. The man explains that he thinks the fire started from the gaming room. Yuya Tenjo informs us that the 6th floor contains feminine products, and the 3rd floor is a gaming room. He explains that, if he remembers correctly, the correct floor is the 3rd. He reports that Kaori and the others are even higher up. He says things are bad. The girls aren't picking up the phone. The man yells at Yuya and calls him to come back, asking what the hell he's doing. Yuya Tenjo says the higher you go, the more smoke and heat there is. Yuya Tenjo climbs the stairs. He says that things are worse than he thought, and if he goes any further, then... He explains that he has mental fortification, resistance to the fear status effect and mental attacks. He says that in such a situation only magic can help, and something is needed. Yuya Tenjo explains that a water ball won't work. It could easily collapse a building. Water isn't for attack, but for defense. He says he'll encase himself in water. He says that he can now pass. He explains that given how big the fire has gotten, it's better to focus not on putting it out, but on finding Kaori and the others. Yuya Tenjo reports that there is no one nearby, everyone was able to get out of there, and tells them to go to the next floor. There is a restaurant on the 6th floor and offices on the 5th floor. Yuya Tenjo reports that he found 3 people on this floor just nearby. Yuya Tenjo shouts the names of Kaori, Keed, and Rin. Yuya Tenjo asks Keed what's wrong with her, and Keed answers by turning to Yuya Tenjo. The girl says that people are suffocating from smoke and they need to be pulled out of here as soon as possible. The girl asks how to do this, and another girl says that 3 people need to be carried through the burning floors and asks if she can handle it. He says that now is not the time for. The guy says his friends are still inside and asks to save 3 girls and a guy. The man says it's better to leave here. Yuya Tenjo says that if they don't get out of here soon, it's the end. Yuya Tenjo reports that he has spent quite a lot of mana. The shortest and fastest way, the man says, is right here. Yuya Tenjo reports that it's a wind barrier. Yuya Tenjo says he created a wind shield around himself. The guy reports that there's a person there and someone is coming out of the building. The man shouts for a stretcher. Another man asks if they're okay. He's carrying a girl in his arms, and the girl is helping him. The men run toward them, calling Yuyu and Yuya-kun. No one was killed or injured, and the fire was successfully extinguished. The fire was caused by damaged wiring in the gaming room and a failed alarm, resulting in the following consequences. The guy apologizes for the trouble he caused and asks for forgiveness. The firefighter explains that in such situations, you should immediately evacuate to a safe place and stay away from the fire. He warns that the guy could have died and says he was lucky this time and that the firefighter gave him a good talking to. The man says that the other person shouldn't apologize to him. The guy remains silent. Yuya Tenjo says he shouldn't have gone there and that they were very worried. The man confirms this. Yuya Tenjo apologizes. The man and the other man ask if he's okay and apologize for yelling at him. Yuya Tenjo reports that this was the first time his friends. The man reports that the girls were taken to the hospital and soon regained consciousness without complications. The man says that Yuya has saved Kaori many times and will never be able to repay him for it, expressing his deep gratitude. Yuya says he's glad everyone is okay. The man explains that the school train. The man says there is no point in canceling it, and if everyone is ready for it, then he asks to have fun there. The guy reports that they succeeded. Yuya Tenjo says yes, and the man explains that he doesn't want her to break down either, and shouts hooray. He says he always comes to the rescue when he's needed, and confirms that this is indeed true. The girl suggests hurrying home, as it's already quite late. Yuya Tenjo says yes. Yuya Tenjo reports that she is looking out the car window. Yuya Tenjo explains that she is standing by the wardrobe with clothes. The guy says he's home and calls night. The dog barks. The man explains that he's been wanting a pet for a long time and now he has a friend. The school trip is reported to be next week. In the background, at the top right, it's announced that the 4th volume of the comic will be released on December 26th. At the bottom right, a girl says she's won, while another girl next to her objects. On the left, a boy and a girl watch the action. At the top left, a bus is shown with passengers inside. On the left, the woman says that Yuya Tenjo is amazing and has taken first place for the umpteenth time in a row. The man explains that Yuya Tenjo's expression is all over the place. The girl tells him she can't win because she's a prince. He says he was probably just lucky. The girl asks if that's really true. The man thinks he shouldn't talk about it. Yuya Tenjo says he thinks it's a scam. The man says the same thing. The woman tells the man to calm down. He explains that with such powers, he has the ability to help everyone. The woman explains that she's sure Akira-kun will be popular with older women. The man says he's actually offended. Yuya Tenjo says everything seems to be fine. He says he didn't mean to stare like that. The girl silently lowers her head. He and the girl turn sharply to each other. The guy asks if they'll be stopping here. The girl says it looks nice. The man says it looks like there are hot springs here. The girl remarks on how big the bus is. Yuya Tenjo looks at the bus. He says that everyone is here. The man says that, as expected from their school, he can't believe that they will live in such a place. The woman says that this is only for the staff, and they will have practical training over there. Yuya Tenjo says he can't understand why the girl is acting like this and asks what's going on. The girl says she's shocked and doesn't know what to say. The man explains that the situation seems strange to him. He says that this trip will be useful for them and that you never know what you might encounter. In any case, the man says that they will give the minimum set necessary for survival and explains that you only need to hold out for 2 nights, and also says that there are plenty of hot springs here, so you need to use them. Yuya Tenjo says he thought he heard something about a hike and says it was just a planned excursion, reminding her to pack the necessary things. The girl asks the teacher about food. The man expresses surprise and speaks seriously. He says it's obvious they'll have to find their own food, since it's school grounds and they can do whatever they want. The man says there won't even be any food, explaining that they won't be able to tell what's edible and what's not. The woman says she's never caught fish before. Yuya Tenjo says that the main thing is to try, that everyone starts somewhere, and that the interlocutor hasn't even tried yet, and also explains that he will learn from his mistakes. He says that the student's success will greatly impact her bonus, and that's her real goal. She explains that the students should prepare their own treats and wishes them luck, assuring them that they will succeed. The students address her as teacher. Yuya Tenjo announces that they'll be checking the ingredients they're going to cook with and explains that it makes sense to pick edible fruits. The girl warns them to be careful of injuries and poisoning and explains that Yamakawa will be the teacher on duty. The man laughs and says, he announces that the tent is ready. The guy asks what's next and when the food is, and the girl says good work. The woman explains that it doesn't matter whether it's mushrooms or vegetables. The camping prince will take care of everything and asks them to ignore her. She suggests they split up. Yuya Tenjo reports that they have come to the river. The girl says oh. Yuya Tenjo explains that apparently many others have done the same. The girl says it's hard to fish with such a crowd and suggests they go back. He says, The man reports that a presence has been detected. The man reports that the enemy army is surrounded and won't be able to break through. The man explains that if they wait, they can win without losses. The man explains that now is the perfect time to attack. The girl says that everyone is going there and asks Yuya Tenjo, will he go? Yuya Tenjo tells me to come here. The woman says it's like a hole in the ice, and the guy warns that the fish might swim away. He asks if it would be comfortable to fish in such shallow water, and the woman replies that using a bucket won't work. He says he'll try. The boy asks what happened, the man asks what's going on. Yuya Tenjo covers his face with his hands and the guy asks what he's doing. The guy explains that if they were monsters, they would have already swum away. But since they were ordinary fish, he can approach them without revealing his presence. The man says the word murder. The fish is swimming in the water. Yuya Tenjo reports the result. In the background, 3 people watch with surprised expressions. Yuya Tenjo holds a fish in his hand, raising it up. He says it's unbelievable and wonders why everyone is looking. The man says he saw it with his bare hands, so fast he didn't even have time to blink, and claims it's not human. The girl says it happened instantly. The guy asks if they can do it and says they're ninjas. Yuya Tenjo explains what they are learning and invites them to join the fishing club and asks them to teach them. The girl tells him to put the fish in a bucket, and Yuya agrees. Yuya and the girl evaluate the fish, and the girl reports that it's free of poison and parasites, saying it's probably safe. Yuya notes that the girl knows her stuff. The girl explains. The girl laughs and says that in Yui's physical education class Tenjo said the same thing. Yuya Tenjo is surprised and says that he doesn't have a shred of common sense. The girl asks if he should catch more so there's enough for everyone. He says he'll take a bucket. The guy says no problem. The woman announces her return and asks how everything went. The girl says that Yuya Tenjo is amazing and Yuya Tenjo responds with surprise. The man yells at Yuya Tenjo asking what he's doing. He says there's no need to lift him, he's almost dead from fatigue, and the girl replies that's bad. The guy and girl notice he's conscious, and the other girl is outraged at being used so brazenly. Downstairs, he says everything was fine at first. Yuya Tenjo reports that the test consisted of unknown roads and dangers. He even saw a bear on his way, but then he realized that this was the end for him. He says that as long as she's smiling, everything's fine, and tells her that they're terribly worried about her smiles. The boy and girl scream and say that they should have shown them the mushrooms they ate first, and ask if there really was a bear. He explains that there are no serious. Yuya Tenjo says that everything is fine now, but maybe they need to find a nurse, and asks if it is teacher Yamakawa. The girl says that if a solution is not found, then everyone will die, the guy exclaims, and he says that something needs to be done urgently. Yuya Tenjo says he didn't know that and considers the situation hopeless. The woman explains that the teacher isn't a bad person, just a little unusual. The girl says everything is fine. The man says something's wrong. The top right indicates that Akira's catch is edible. The bottom right indicates black truffles. The top left indicates Maripolis, and the bottom left indicates Japonica. In front of the teacher's tent, a man and a woman walk towards her. Yuya Tenjo says he understands, and the girl says they were told to wait in line. Yuya Tenjo addresses Kaori. A woman asks him how his class is doing. He says it seems so and didn't think they'd have such practical training. The woman laughs. The girl is glad that Yuya Tenjo is fine. Yuya Tenjo says that they have collected a lot of things, and the girl explains what he meant about his condition that time. He says that everything only happened because he invited her and asks her to forgive him for putting her through this. The girl responds with, "Ah," then explains that everything is fine, that she is healthy, and apologizes for not thanking him properly. Yuya Tenjo says she had a great time and it's not true that it was otherwise. He also reports. He says that he is glad that he was invited. The guy says they're done with the inspection and turns to Kaori. Kaori says she understands. Yuya Tenjo says he'll see the guy, to which he replies, "See you soon." He says that Kaori and Toya-kun are so close, and Kaori confirms that they are good friends. The man announces that they are next. He explains that not only did the group bring a lot of food, but all of it turned out to be edible, adding that this is the only group. Yuya Tenjo says the situation is too bad, and the man and woman react with surprise. Yuya Tenjo says that there is no need to relax, as everything needs to be cooked thoroughly, and asks if there are any good cooks. He says that he is the only one. The girl to his right is silent, and the girl to her left cheerfully announces that he is not the only one. The guy wishes her luck and says he'll give her a ride on his shoulders later. The man says he'll help. The girl explains she can be trusted with the seasonings. Yuya Tenjo says he'll be the taster. He says that of what there is, the main dish will be fish, which should be fried so that it is easy to eat. A girl and a woman are singing. Yuya Tenjo says there will be mushrooms as a side dish, and everyone should have some juices. He explains that he's cooking with Japanese wild yascoria and other vegetables. The man says he's had a drink and leans back. Yuya Tenjo says great, it's ready. He explains that a salad of vegetables, mushrooms, and black truffles pairs well with Japanese wild garlic, and also mentions chur and salmon. The girl says it's beyond ordinary cooking, and he says it's professional. The man says it's superb and that the teacher will try it first, and the girl warns that it's their dinner. The man explains what he thought was the strange smell and says that this is the culprit. Yuya Tenjo says it's okay to try and confirms it. The girl says that today will be fun, and the man with the long ponytail replies that he thinks so too. He gets excited and eats rice. A man says their cafeteria has top-notch chefs, and another man explains that their cafeteria is very high quality. A woman says, "Oh my God, it's wonderful." Yuya Tenjo and the girl say it's delicious. He says he's glad they liked it and that he's always happy when others are happy, like he was with Luna. The girl grabs him from behind and says she didn't know he could cook so well. He's surprised and asks what's going on. Yuya Tenjo tells her she's so pathetic and always has nothing but problems, asks if they're drunk, and says that since she's an adult, she can drink and get married. The man replies that she reeks of it. Yuya Tenjo asks if he agrees the man in. The woman says it's not his, and it's not Kazama's. He says she's completely wasted. The girl asks whose it is, and the man replies that it's hers. The man says that's bad news again. Yuya Tenjo says that he won't let the girl go and will wait until she grows up. The girl says that no, then no, and screams, "Ah." The dog says, "Woof." He says he came to feed the dog, but he'll have to leave right afterward. The dog responds with a woof, saying everything is fine and it barely hurts. Then he exclaims, "Woof," as a dark creature appears nearby. Yuya Tenjo says he'll be back tomorrow and asks him to be a good boy. The man makes a woof sound. A mountain surrounded by trees is visible against the night sky. The girl calls Yuya Tenjo, asks where he is and where he went, explaining that he wants to apologize for last time. The girl calls Yuya again. Tenjo then notices something and says, "Oh." The girl sees a bear and calls it a predator, then remains silent. He asks Keed what happened to her. Keed says that Yuya-kun should have answered when she called and asks where he was. He apologizes. The image shows a staircase leading downwards, surrounded by trees and shrubs. The location appears quiet and secluded, but there are no characters or speech on the stage. Yuya Tenjo says he understands, so she came out to find him. The girl explains that she needs to thank him. Yuya Tenjo asks why. The girl explains that she's been relying solely on him for fishing and cooking since morning, and says she's so clumsy. He says it's not scary. The girl says he's saved her many times in gym class and at the mall, and that's not all. He explains that he carried heavy things as if he didn't notice and was worried about Ichinos. The girl says there are so many good things about him. The girl says it's her, then says and oh. The guy explains that it's not quite like that, but Yuya Tenjo says, "Well, I am." The girl says, "I am." Yuya Tenjo and the girl watching the fireworks. The girl and Yuya Tenjo is asked why. He says, "Welcome back, Keed," and reports that she seems to have found Yuya. The man explains that apparently the boys brought fireworks and wanted to set them off in front of the bathroom. The girl says yes and asks what they are. Rinchan. The guy reports fireworks. A guy tells Tenjo to support him, and Tenjo responds with a question. A girl encourages him not to be shy. Another girl and two guys watch the proceedings. The boy tells Akira-kun about his surprise. The girl says that everything worked out and then says okay. The girl runs and says she's with them. The man stands and listens. Yuya Tenjo says that fireworks can only be launched in the presence of adults and not if there are only children around.